know exist. It's like a perk in the talk of this shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a belly to take on my hate. Look up the better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 7th part of What If Deku Helps His Best Friend, Peter Parker. Smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. That morning, within the confines of his bedroom, Izuku stood in bed and took a deep breath. He conjured forth one for all, feeling the surge of power rush through him as he pictured the image in his head. He has done this ritual over the past week ever since that early morning run with Parker. Every morning, every day after school, and every night he would conjure one for all at 5%, do workouts, and throw punches and kicks in the center of his room or in a bathroom stall at UA. He didn't want to use the battle centers for practice, as he wanted to use the sports festival as an opportunity to surprise his peers. He began to do simple workouts, like push-ups and pull-ups, noticing how much easier it was now as he glowed green. After a few sets, Izuku plopped down and got dressed in his running fatigues. School was starting a bit later than usual since today was the big day of the sports festival. The event was to begin at noon, with the first-year class of UA set to arrive on campus at 9. It was 5 now, which meant he had a good hour before he had to eat breakfast and get dressed. Izuku left his apartment quietly and made it to the beach, taking a deep breath as he walked along Dagoba Beach's sands. He saw the many lifeguard towers and got into a running position. He felt his power wash over him like a shroud, the red lines surging then fading as green lightning crackled over him. One step closer to becoming like All Might. He can do this. One for all. 5%. He took off in a run, sand kicking out under him like an explosion. He's got it. He can run and move. But, too fast. He tripped on some sand and fell, rolling in a heap. Izuku's head popped out of the dune, and he spat out sand and coughed. Okay. He stood up, groaning as he patted himself, getting the sand off of him. The boy took a deep breath and channeled his power. It's like learning how to ride a bike. Just got to get used to it. What do you mean I have to be outside security? You shrieked. The rookie heroine winced, her gaze gingerly going to the door of her room. 2 inches of wood wasn't much to block the sound, and she just promised Peter that she was going to be quiet so he could finish his speech, which meant Peter got to throw out an awesome opening statement for the world to hear. And Shinji thought that Peter wasn't going anywhere until he was at least a second year. Speaking of her wood-using colleague, you heard a groan from the other end of the line. We've been over this, Shinji sighed. These are direct orders from the UA faculty and the chief of police. The decision has been made. Oh, I know a decision has been made, but since it's a stupid decision I'm calling you to correct it. Put Fukuda on the line. I know him. You huffed. There was a bang on the other end of the line. No doubt Shinji finally giving in to Yu's demands. No, we're not. You pouted, even though the man couldn't see it. Can I at least have a break when Peter comes on? I don't know, maybe, Shinji said. You'll have to take it up with Death Arms. He's the one in charge of your unit. You hummed, so you're saying there's a chance. Goodbye, Takeyama. No, wait. You shrieked, but the line cut off. You glared at the phone in her hand. That jerk. Just one small favor, was that too much to ask? Oh well, it's not all lost. There was still Death Arms, who she's never really gotten the chance to talk to. Oh boy. Well, you will deal with that when she gets to the arena. Speaking of that, she'd better get moving. Last thing she needed to be was late, even if it was the worst job there. Peter, you called. Are you all set? There was a pause, and you could have swore she heard something fall from the other room. Why, yeah. You frowned. That didn't sound too confident. You have your uniform? She asked, slipping her mask over her eyes. I'm wearing it. Peter replied, wearing his red, white and blue UA PE suit. Smartass. Your web shooters. You pushed, even as she checked her makeup in the mirror. She'd need to get new eyeliner soon. This fade was not working for her anymore. I'm getting those at the arena. You blinked. Why? Something about no last-minute changes, Peter replied with a shrug. How? Makes sense. Taking one last look, you figured she was at least passable if not above average for the reporters there. Even if everyone's attention should be on the kids, a little shot here and there wouldn't be too much to ask. Well, you should finish up, we're about to. Her voice trailed off as she actually got a look at Peter. The boy was nose deep in a script that had been sitting on the kitchen table for days now. Peter's speech. They got a call a few days ago from Aizawa saying that, as the student with the highest score on the practical, Peter was obligated to represent the first years in the opening ceremony of the festival. Initially, you winced at the news. Peter never struck her as the speech-giving type, and in front of pretty much every able-bodied person in Japan watching, it would only make it worse. Instead, he seemed oddly okay with it. Sure, he was shaking up a storm when he got the news, but after the initial shock wore off, he started writing. Apparently, he had some idea what he should say, cause you has no clue. All she knew was that Peter looked ready to burn a hole in that paper with how hard he was staring at it. "You okay, Peter?" she asked. The boy glanced up, his free hand gripping the table for support. I'm good, Peter said, just trying to get the words down. "Nervous?" you asked. Peter nodded, his head shaking like a bobblehead. "Yeah, but it's not like it'll be that bad. I mess up, I'm just messing up in front of everyone." Oh boy, Peter started to pale at the thought. "Don't worry about it," you said quickly. "Just take a deep breath before you start." "Yeah, deep breath." Peter glanced up, giving her a questioning look that made the heroine wilt. "I don't know," she admitted. "They didn't have speech class when I was in school, okay? They didn't have it when I was going through either," Peter pointed out. You felt her smile dip, "but you're fine." Peter chuckled nervously, but he clearly didn't believe her. Pouting a little, she walked up and gave his hair a quick rough shake. He reacted instantly, almost before her hand even touched his hair. You smirked and attacked with her other hand, forcing Peter to go on the defensive. He could have shoved her back, she knew that, but Peter just tried to swat her hands aside, barely containing a stupid laugh as he did so. "Knock it off," Peter chuckled lightly. "Only when you stop being a sourpuss," you responded, reaching for his head once more. She couldn't get it, and when she finally stopped, she winked at him. "It's just a little speech. Barely take a minute, and hey, you can just imagine you're all might." "All might," Peter repeated. "Yeah, you know, all smiles, puffed up chest, just look confident and you'll make it work," you said. She jerked her head. "Now come on, I gotta be there early for security, so you're heading over soon too." Okay, I'm coming," Peter grumbled, but even as he rolled his eyes, he couldn't stop the smirk spreading across his face. "And that's what you was hoping for. A big old smile from the best in class 1A. That's what Peter needed to be today. It's what he was going to be. Just remember to knock him dead, Peter," you reminded. "I don't think I should." "Well, not with that attitude." Everyone within the locker room was on edge. Peter could sense it as he walked in after changing into his UA gym uniform. His web shooters, approved by the evaluation committee, waited for him as he saw his fellow peers socializing and talking amongst themselves. Tenya was trying to get everyone ready, which was a challenge. Injiro and Ajiro were busy stretching for the trials to come. Izuku in particular let the comments slide over his head, muttering up a storm and flipping through a notebook. As much as Peter felt sorry for Tenya, he still had to get ready himself. Now, where was that locker? He scanned the walls till he found locker number 19. Opening up, Peter couldn't help but smile at the box waiting for him, and that grin only grew when he saw the twin set of launchers underneath. Clasping them over his wrist, Peter flicked the activation, sending a few test shots of webbing into the locker. So far so good. Ready for the big show there, Ace. Peter rolled his eyes for show, grinning at the brawler as he approached with Mina by his side. Sort of," Peter said, holding up a hand. Ijiro high-fived him before Mina could even get a word in. The pinky pouted for a moment before brightening up. "I can't wait. This is going to be the best day ever," Mina declared, gripping her fists and almost bouncing on her feet. Peter laughed nervously, what he wouldn't give to have her confidence. "It certainly will be memorable," Momo said. She looked pretty shaken herself, but she kept up a small grin to boost her confidence. "Yeah, let's do our best, right, Midoriya?" Ijiro asked, blinking when he saw the state of the poor boy. His eyes scanned through the pages of his notebook, flipping through the pages at an increasingly fast rate. He was still mumbling to himself too. "Does he even stop to breathe?" Peter asked, watching the stream of mumbles coming out of the green-haired boy. "Oh, Midoriya," Ijiro said, shaking him. Izuku shrieked, nearly dropping his notebook. "Oh, Kirishima," Izuku chirped, fumbling his notebook behind him. "You okay, man?" Peter asked. "Me? Oh yeah, I'm fine." "You sure? You look like Parker," Mina said. American blinked. "Wait, what do I look like?" Mina thought for a moment, snapping when the thought came to her. "You look like you're going to be tardy to Mr. Aizawa's class, you're shaking so much," Mina said, a megawatt grin spreading across her face and a thumbs up thrown Peter's way. If it was meant as a joke, the brown-haired boy could only let his shoulders slump at the attempt. "I didn't think I was that bad." Peter grumbles. "You're not," Momo pointed out. "This is a stressful situation for everyone." "Why yeah," Peter said. "Just listen to Momo. Midoriya, you're not the only." "Midoriya." Peter stopped, watching as Todoroki glared down the green-haired student. All conversation seemingly died off as the monochrome student barged his way into the small group. He shot Peter a scathing look, which only made the American blink. What did he do? What is it, Todoroki? Todoroki focused back on Izuku, causing the boy to shrink under his gaze. Objectively speaking, I'm better than you. Peter blinked, and he glanced at Momo, who was similarly looking just as confused. Where was this coming from? However, Todoroki stressed, All Might's got his eye on you. I don't know why, but I don't care. Doesn't matter that you have his attention. He stopped, his stare switching to Peter for a second. Or whatever bumbling fool is distracting everyone else, because I will beat you. The room went silent, everyone staring at Todoroki in varying degrees of disbelief. Denki was the first to break the silence. Holy crap, we throwing out declarations of war. Hey man, what's the big deal? Ijiro said, putting a hand on the ice user's shoulder. We're about to go on, why you picking a fig? Todoroki shrugged him off, throwing the brawler a glare for even trying to touch him. I don't care, he said, his words as cold as his quirk. I'm here to be the best, not to make friends. You feel like that all you want, man, Peter said, but you think you could spread your quirk and chill out a little. Next to him, Mina stifled a laugh, and Momo sighed. The monochrome-haired boy narrowed his eyes as he focused on Peter. I don't know if you've noticed, Parker, Todoroki bit back, but this is serious. Peter took a step back, hands up in surrender, an uneasy smile spreading over him. Sorry, I have a bad habit of making jokes in tense situations. The ice user lightly rolled his eyes. Todoroki, Izuku said, speaking up. That got the son of Endeavor's attention as he turned towards Izuku, as did the rest of the class. His hands were shaking, and his eyes were glued to the floor. I don't know why you felt the need to say that. You're clearly better than me, and I can't really be compared to most people here. His eyes darted upwards, taking nervous glances at Todoroki, Bakugou sitting in the background, even Peter who blinked. But I'm not going to just stand here and let you take the top, Izuku declared, looking up and staring down one of the strongest in their class. He wasn't shaking. I'm not gonna hold back. I'm going for the top two. Todoroki's eyes narrowed, but he begrudgingly nodded, right. The two boys stared one another down, an air of competition so thick that Peter had to swallow the block of ice that found its way into his throat. This is getting really intense, Peter whispered. Next to him, Momo shifted, but she nodded her agreement. No kidding, and it's almost time to go out, Mina whispered, leaning in awkwardly. Peter grimaced slightly at the reminder and looked down at his speech that he had folded up in his hand. He rewrote it on the car ride to UA, with you going over his personal beliefs and what he thought meant becoming a great hero means in the end. Okay everyone, let's look alive. Let's act as professional and hero-like as can be, Tenya shouted as he waved his arms, relieving the tension in the locker room. Peter stood up, pocketing his speech and walking over to Momo. You ready? The black-haired girl nodded and turned towards the class. Everyone remember the walkthrough this morning. We line up based on our seating chart. The world is watching us, let's put our best foot forward, Momo stated, hands on her hips. She gave a light smile. Alright, just breathe easy, smile and wave to the crowd. Peter laughed, shaking his shoulders. Helps when dealing with lots of people looking at you. He would know, as he would do that back in Queens when doing Spider-Man things. Now, doesn't have the mask. He gestured with his hand, and he and Momo began walking towards the door, taking charge, as expected of our class reps. Grinned Ijiro as he and the rest of the class followed suit, leaving their lockers and following the American out of the room. Momo and Izuku walked by his side. Tenya marched to the left, while Bakugou and Todoroki were in the rear with the rest of the students following behind the two leaders. They walked out of the locker room, everyone silent as they began to prepare for the roar of the audience within the massive stadium. You ready? Peter asked under his breath in English, looking towards Momo. The girl noticed and the boy blushed. Sorry, fell into English. It's alright, I'm a little nervous too but... She paused, in English no less as Peter's eyes rose up. Momo began looking to the side, trying to find the words, eyes looking conflicted, as if she couldn't speak them. She turned back, smiling lightly. Let's do our best to support each other and win. The American blinked and grinned a little back. Yeah, you said it. He felt a tapping on his shoulder, seeing Izuku behind him. He wasn't eavesdropping, was he? Yeah, Midori. Peter asked in Japanese. Parker-san. Izuku replied. Thank you again for helping. I truly mean it. But, he had a daredevil smile pop up. If we are meant to go against each other, I'm not gonna hold back, even if you did help get my power under control. I meant what I said back there. Momo smiled back, confidence bouncing off her as Peter turned towards her. You helped him? She asked in English. Peter shrugged with a wry smile. When you got a friend in need. He mused off in his native tongue before turning back towards Izuku. If you say that, then I guess I won't pull my punches either. Peter winked. Izuku grinned, nodding. They got into the tunnel, the roar of the crowd dulled by the concrete and steel, and the bright light of the stadium floor dead ahead. The ex-Avenger took a deep breath. "All right." Peter patted his cheeks. "Let's do this." And they walked out into the stadium first, the roaring of the crowd deafening. Welcome everyone one and all to the UA Sports Festival, where once a year you get to see our heroes in training duke it out for fame, glory, and a chance to impress the best of the rest, shouted Present Mike from the loudspeaker. Peter looked around and gulped lightly, biting his tongue. Good lord, there was so many people. Even when doing Spider-Man stuff in Manhattan, he'd seen a lot of people congested together, but never all this much looking in one direction. This has to be what superstar athletes feel like. Be cool, act like LeBron, be chill like Steph, Peter muttered to himself in English. Momo quirked an eyebrow over his way. "I'm sorry, but what was that?" she asked. The brown-haired boy perked up and laughed. "Oh, just some role models I know back home." Hehe. Peter rubbed the back of his head before coughing into his hand. "Okay, game face now. For those who don't know me, I am your host and Mick of the first year circuit, Present Mike. Joining me for color commentary is Izawa, also known as Eraserhead." "Why am I here?" muttered the voice of Izawa. Peter looked back, and he saw Denki, Mina, and Zero corpsing and stifling their laughter. This year's first-year crop of hero prospects might be the best and the most controversial in a long while. The first group walking to the center of the arena, you know 'em in the news for surviving and thwarting the recent villain attack on our campus. Give it up. The crowd seemed to roar and cheer louder. For the hero courses Class 1A. The promoting made the dam break, lifting the collective cheers to a near-deafening cry that made Peter nearly wince. He remembered sports stadiums being loud back home, but this was ridiculous. "Man, talk about Mike Sensei being a hype man," Denki stated, looking off bashfully. Peter nodded. This was getting a bit overboard for his liking. Though, Todoroki didn't seem to mind it, and Ijiro grinned confidently. "I'm getting pumped up now," the brawler declared. "To think all these people and news outlets are more interested in us for what we went through. It's kind of messed up," Ajiro said awkwardly. "It's like with being in a rock band, the more controversy, the more eyeballs." Kyoka answered as she had her head on a swivel, inspecting the crowds. "So many people," Izuku stammered, biting his lip as he waved. Peter took a deep breath, focusing dead ahead. He had to look strong and cool for his classmates. "Don't worry about it, Midoriya. Ace here is taking it in stride." Ijiro patted the green-haired boy on the back, pointing at Peter. Peter looked back, waving as he let out a nervous smile. "Or he's just as nervous as the rest of us," Kyoka muttered plainly. Peter closed his eyes and turned forward. "Dang it, so much for acting like a cool and chill NBA superstar." He felt Momo pat him on the shoulder in assurance. "And here are the rest of the first-year classes. From the hero course, Class B." Peter turned, seeing many other tunnels and students walking forward. The closest one had Class 1B, to which Peter saw Pony. The girl seemed too busy looking around in all like a deer in headlights. Setsuna was grinning and noticed, waving back at him. He returned the favor. He saw Kendo and Tetsu lead with Monoma as well, who seemed to give him a sly sideways glance. Following up are classes C, D, and E from general education. Peter saw the larger group of students walking forth, and from the crowd he spotted that purple-haired boy who made his declaration of war the other day. It didn't help matters that bakugou seemed to throw gasoline into the fire, but bakugou is beyond helping at this point. Next from the support course are classes F, G, and H. From the other throng of students, Peter can just barely make out Hatsune walking out in her gear, and he couldn't help but grin. He can't wait to see her gadgets in action. He tuned out the rest of the business course as he got to the allotted station for Class A, all the students forming up based on seating chart. He stood by Izuku, Momo, Todoroki, and bakugou. From the above the seats, standing by one of the tunnels leading onto the stadium concourse, the flame hero Endeavor looked down as he saw the foreign brat lead Class 1A. He narrowed his eyes. "So that's him, the spider," he muttered, arms crossed. Shoto better surpass him and use his gift. This was his first shot, to declare to the world that the son of Endeavor was to be the pinnacle of this grade class, no, the peak of this generation. To be the one who will surpass All Might and knock him from his mountain is number one. No king rules forever, as the old saying goes. Shoto has had some setbacks, but he better focus and realize how precious his gifts were before he squanders them away all for the matter of foolish pride. He has spine. He has brains. He can utilize his ice in unique ways. If he can only use his fire to such an effect, 3rd years with work-study experience wouldn't hold a candle. Granted, the other recommended student had a hand too, but the Yaoyorozu girl was only for support, not in straight combat, as the report he got said in fine detail on how one strike from Parker sent Shoto to the ground, and that was the end of it. Yet still, for some, no-name nobody from nowhere to beat his son. Denji shook his head. No need for bad memories. His youngest son has only been fighting so far with one hand behind his back. On purpose, he'll learn, and if this sports festival doesn't send the message through that skull of his. Denji's crossed arms tightened as he focused his glare on his son. He could see Shoto look towards the audience, trying to find him until he saw his head turn his way, walking with his class. He has this day. This day his rebellion must end. If he won't do it for himself, then not doing for others truly is the sign of insanity. The Todoroki family has no room for fools who are only deluding themselves. Alright, are we nice and comfy boys and girls? Midnight declared as she swung her pom-pom whip thingy around. The R-rated hero beamed under the lights as many students, mostly those of the unfair sex, gawked in awe. Among other emotions, why is Midnight still in her hero costume? Peter stated with pink on his cheeks, biting his lower lip, the way she strutted. She bounced quite a bit. He turned, seeing Momo looking at him. Sorry, it's she then broke out into a light chuckle. It's alright. That's our confident sensei. Did Momo not get it? Or was she viewing this from a different angle? Peter blinked, throwing a shrug in there for good measure. Kayama Nimiri is a good friend of Yu's, as he's heard his guardian state how she helped her through school outside of class and was an intern under her. What she did at Midnight's firm. You didn't elaborate. Maybe some things are best left unsaid. She was a good art teacher though. A bit too teasing for one. Zero had a hard time focusing in that class. Last year it was Snipe, guess they change it up. Izuku nodded awkwardly. Is it even okay for a teacher to wear that in a school event, let alone an event that is nationally broadcasted? Takoyami said, for the first time breaking his brooding self in evident surprise plus no small amount of concern. Midnight seemed to have heard him and cracked the whip. Silence, she demanded, the crowd of students who stood in line going ramrod straight at the prompt. Now, the grade representative to give the student pledge for the first years is Peter Parker. Come on up. Peter took a deep breath, exhaling deeply as he felt his heart clench. His speech was in his pocket. He patted it. Good, still there. Wait, how did the red shirt get the pledge? Bakugou barked. Parker got first on the entrance exam in total score in our grade. Todoroki stated, looking over at the blonde. So he is our rep. Bakugou scoffed, looking to the side and fuming. Peter walked up the steps, and time seemed to slow down as he remembered his speech. How he got here to this point. What had to happen to get here. He felt his heart calm itself, the beat slowing down as he took deep slow exhale as he walked to the center of the stage. Midnight offered him the mic as he took out his paper slip. Go on ahead, she stated, offering him a warm smile as she stepped aside. Peter took center stage. The stadium and arena seemed to focus entirely on him. Envious, disillusioned stares rained down from General Education Department. His hero course peers gazing in excitement save for a few. The support course eager to hear from the Mad Witch's bestie. Peter looked down, closing his eyes and taking a deep breath. All right, here we go. He spoke in Japanese, doing his best to think through on every word. The world was watching. This was his introduction to the wide open world at large. Like Mr. Aizawa said, make this opportunity count. So, where do we begin? Peter asked. He took a breath, looking down, remembering everything that led him here. The good times with you, all his new friends. Yet he came here because of how he died. There is so much attention because he was in an incident where he almost died. Again, he reopened his eyes. There have been a lot of rumors about our year out there from the news, from within UA. Peter said, his voice ringing with a confidence he barely felt. He was just trying to remember the speech, remember the next word. Whatever you heard, the truth is that we're not here just for us. Every one of us has a mentor that they look up to, a parent or friend that they owe to have the chance to stand here. We're here to make them proud and show that it wasn't just favors that got us here. The entire stadium went quiet, eager to listen. Deep breath and say it. He had this. UA has given us the chance to help everyone we can, to serve our communities and save others from danger and misfortune, and we're not going to let any of you down. It's our responsibility, our duty, to ensure that we rise to the occasion and surpass those who came before us. At least, that's how many of us see it. His tone became somber, because for those of us to have gotten to this point, to this stage in our lives, sacrifices had to been made. Peter paused, looking out to the crowd. Reality is not what we want most of the time. He turned his speech over, seeing how a silence has fallen over the crowd. Peter had their complete attention. It is easy to sail when winds and waters are kind. Life isn't fair most of the time though. Sometimes the waters are uncontrollable. Sometimes the wind's too hard, or none come at all and you're stuck. The only thing you can do is adapt, move forward, and survive. He pocketed his speech. We all have a responsibility to those who came before us, the ones who we admire. He paused. We owe to them for helping us get here, and to not give it our all in living up to their ideals would be an insult. That is what we must do in these rough times. Live up to the ideals of our idols and surpass them, become better, and move ahead and beyond their limits. Peter leaned into the microphone. May the best thrive. Go beyond, plus ultra. He stepped her back and bowed in respect. Thank you very much. Peter let out a sigh. Quiet. Did he do bad? He heard the first sound of clapping, coming from within his student body, and then it spread across like a wildfire. Soon the whole arena was giving him an applause, mostly even-keeled, as was the audience at large. He had given a speech worthy of respect, and they were returning that respect in kind. Peter felt calm, composed, focused. He had to get his game face on as he bowed slightly in respect back again. Next to him, Midnight gave a polite clap and gestured towards the grounds. Well said, Parker. She spoke with sincerity. Peter stepped off the stage to the awaiting claps of his peers. He offered a small smile as he got to his spot. Well now, that's certainly something. Shouta focused in on Peter the moment he said his speech. That one of the most laid-back students in his class was very serious during his speech, and he sat up in his chair. He might actually take this seriously. He muttered to himself, away from the mic as his Ashi gave Parker praise. What a way to kickstart this sports festival. As expected of the first-year Phenom who has turned heads here. Way to go, Parker. Shout aside, giving his Ashi a look. He wished he had a volume button he can just adjust. But no mistake about it. Parker was different. He wasn't nervous, or cracking jokes like before in the battle trials. He was intending on taking this matter as serious as possible, dedicating himself to the degree his other students do. He leaned forward in his seat. That sounded a little more somber than I thought, Shinji said with his arms crossed, walking around the outside of the stadium with death arms and Mount Lady. He turned towards his blonde-haired colleague, her looking up at the screen as she munched on some dango she finagled from a nearby vendor. Then again, her ward was in the hospital. It must have given him some form of perspective. You gonna be alright, Takeyama? Shinji asked, and Takeyama perked up. Oh, well, I'll be fine. Just, Peter's doing his best for his peers is all, she said with a wide smile. Whatever you say. Finish that up. We got a job to focus on. The light concern that was in the woman's face was gone as she rolled her eyes and finished her dango sticks. Fine, fine. Oh, a meat bun stand. And the server is. Shinji followed her eyes, seeing some college kid serving meat buns, and his hand met his helmet. Yoo-hoo, are those meat buns you serving handsome? Hearing her giggle civiciously, getting the kid's attention with a pose, the wood user groaned. HNN, that was Peter Parker, huh? Shinso Hitoshi mused aloud as he finished clapping, standing amongst his fellow students in the general education department. His peers were skeptical on Class 1A and the attention they brought, and Parker was an enigma to many in his class. He saw the foreigner walk back to his class of cohorts and got back in line, hands in pockets as he seemed to be focused. Well, sounds like he's taking this seriously. Taking his spot in the hero course may be out of the question, especially considering how throughout his grade Parker is considered one of the top students not to get in via recommendations. Maybe gunning for that meek green-haired looking kid may be his best shot of getting in. Parker seemed nice enough. Decent speech too. He wasn't that blonde asshat or the green-haired dweeb. He did give a good speech. Adapting, sacrifice, and thriving. Well, it's high time to make his reality how he wants it. Hitoshi made a mental note and began to scope out his class, recalling some of the more belligerent boys he has heard from gossip and hearsay. One little insult and they'll blow their top, and it's smooth sailing. The purple-haired boy couldn't help but grin. As Parker walked past, Izuku saw him take his place. That didn't sound like the happy Peter Parker who helped him on the beach, or the one who encouraged him. He said some serious words to help motivate the class, but for some reason, Parker was looking at the ground. His eyes were off, as if he was looking off into a far-off place, not here at this loud stadium. He almost looked forlorn, as if he spoke at a funeral. What could be going through his head? Izuku gripped his fists, taking a deep breath and focusing forward at Midnight Sensei. As much as he would like to talk to Parker on a good speech he gave and how he came up with it, he had to concentrate on the first event of the sports festival. He took a deep breath, looking up to the suites on high, trying to make out All Might's yellow pinstripe suit. It was close. It was almost time for him to make his declaration to the world. That Midoriya Izuku is here. Alright then. With that being said, we can proceed with the first event. Midnight declared as Peter looked back up at the scantily clad beauty as she waved her whip. Behind her, a massive holographic screen appeared her. The big words preliminary event was at the top, and like a slot machine, the center of the screen began to spin. The first event is what weeds out the pretenders from the contenders, so what could it be? She smirked, playing it up to the audience as the screen continued spinning. Peter patted his pockets. Web shooters were still in there. Good. Now then, our preliminary event of the first year grade sports festiva is Midnight posed, pointing towards the screen as it stopped. This obstacle race, self-explanatory, a race involving an obstacle course. Peter took a deep breath, and he felt a pat on his shoulder. That was a good speech, Parker, Momo murmured in English. You ready? She asked in slight concern. Peter gave a soft chuckle, giving a light smile. I'm fine. No worries. The speech brought up some memories. He didn't need to let his friends know about them. Now then, Midnight's voice made the two class reps pause. As the title implies, you will be taking part in a race involving all the classes within your grade. The race is 4 kilometers long, taking you around the stadium outside of the vendor grounds on a special track. You'll find many obstacles which you must overcome. Anything goes as long as you remain inside the race track. The black-haired vixen declared with a confident grin. And no lethal moves, which goes without saying. If you get knocked off the course, you're disqualified. Students, take your places by the front gate. She pointed over to the side of the field where a massive gate was, complete with a tunnel leading out of the stadium. The gate had 3 bright red lights, and all the students began to conglomerate to it. Peter was hearing the ambience of the crowd die down as he felt his fingers on his web shooters. All right then, my little ones, on your marks, she yelled, and the first red light faded. 2 left. Many heroes were watching. His class was here. He was their deputy rep. He had a duty to fulfill. 1 light left. Get set. He didn't hear anything as he bent down, hand on the ground as he got into a sprinter position. All the students had passed him to try and get as close to the front line as possible. He took a deep breath. Green light. Go. All the students charged forth like a mad mob, yelling as they ran into the tunnel. But Peter jumped, flying over the crowd with one mighty leap. He aimed his hands and fired. He felt his web lines lace out, hitting the walls, and with one pull, he propelled himself over the mob and through the tunnel. Peter hit the ground. He was running before he could blink. He can hear the yelling of the students getting wedged into the tunnel via bottleneck fade, pumping his arms as fast as he could, breathing out of his nose hard. He could feel a light cold gust. Todoroki was gunning for him. With a tingle down his spine, he swerved to the left, aiming to hug the corner of the dirt track as he avoided a straight-line ice surge. He heard yelling and explosions behind him. Bakugou, he growled, exhaling as he kicked it up a gear, dust forming behind him as he sprinted ahead. Peter saw movement in the forest to both sides, and ahead of him. Before him was an open area on the track. To either side was the edge of the race as he sprinted. He saw movements burst forth from the foliage. Target acquired. Destroy. Toned a 1-pointer robot as a swarm of 1, 2, and 3-pointer robots began to roll in when the track spread out. Peter let out an exhale, dropping low, ducking under a 1-pointer's swipe. With Todoroki and Bakugou gaining fast, he didn't have a moment to lose. He jumped over a pair of incoming missiles from a 3-pointer, leaping on top of it. With it under him, using it as a springboard to propel himself forward was child's play. His legs were like a blur as he raced through the slowly growing robot platoon. He saw platforms ascend, but Peter didn't pay them any heed, even as the sound and size of them indicated them being massive in size. He saw one platform form ahead, and a giant 0-pointer robot appeared, its many red irises focusing in on Peter. Peter grit his teeth, launching his web at the head as the beast began to move. He saw the behemoth coming down upon him with a punch. He heard Present Mike yell something, but Peter didn't pay any attention as he soared towards the behemoth. He spun in air, feet on the back of the robot's RV-sized head. Like before with the 3-pointer tank, Peter used the back of the 0-pointer's head, launching, soaring through the air. Peter let out an exhale, aimed his webbing far ahead, and fell due to gravity. He felt the web latch on. He pulled. He zoomed in towards the track, like a missile. With the wind in his ears, Peter blinked, time slowing down in his mind's eye. He can feel the air whizzing by, the sensation of defying gravity almost intoxicating. The chaos of the race behind him, with the sound of explosions and forming glaciers fading into the sights and sounds of New York City. Peter inhaled, opening his eyes to find himself zooming in on the track. He did a tumble, landing on his feet, but he didn't stop there. Look at him go. Parker has cleared the Robo Inferno in the time it took the most of his peers to clear the entry gate. He's like a cheetah out there. Watch out there. Todoroki is in hot pursuit, as is a select few who escaped Todoroki's ice salvo. Oh man, look out, BELOOOW. A brilliant and cunning move from Todoroki. Present Mike yelled, as Peter finally listened to him slightly as he continued to run, veering towards the left edge of the track and running on it. It was like those times watching the horse races with Aunt May. Hug the wall, cut off anyone behind you. He heard cannon fire as he continued to sprint, taking breaths. Down goes some mega robots. Some of Class 1A and 1B are separating from the pack, but Parker is ahead by many lengths, with Todoroki, Bakugou, Takoyami, Tsunotori and Midoriya is ganging on them. Parker isn't slowing down though. Peter let out an inhale as he continued to jet it. Can't focus on what's behind, focus on what's ahead. But be careful, the next obstacle for Parker is the FANFICTION. You hit rock bottom, you're out. Present Mike broadcasted as Peter saw the trees part. Before him, a massive ravine filled with spires and connecting cords filled his vision. But he didn't stop. He let out a calm exhale as he continued to run, not stopping. He's still going. Is he gonna jump? Peter launched, dust and dirt exploding behind him as he made a mighty leap, flying over the many spires from the force of his jump alone. His legs together, arms outstretched as if he was an Olympic diver, or like that one blonde kid from that Rescue Mouse movie he saw as a kid with the eagles and big game hunters, as he felt the wind race through his ears. Closing his eyes, Peter could see it, in falling from some of the highest buildings and whenever he went into Manhattan. Time slowing down as the dark recesses of the ravine were betwixt with the bright skyscrapers, the rush of air in his ears as he fell. He 1005. Mike howled. He aimed with his arm as gravity began to take him. Peter saw a path, a clear line between the spires. Time to thread the needle. The web launched from his wrist, latching on as he fell, letting him swing forward at high speed. He took a deep breath, nearly hitting the spires when he saw the bottom that was laced with a thick blue jelly of some kind, with red lasers on top to detect the students, no doubt. He avoided the bottom. The momentum of his swing took him upward, and Peter felt nostalgic joy rush through him. He only got this feeling when swinging on the Brooklyn Bridge or through Manhattan, just barely brushing the water or the ground level. The force of his fall propelled him back up, physics pushing him upward, above and beyond over 2/3 of the ravine. He flipped in air, arms outstretched. This feeling of flying, swinging through the air. Peter has never felt such a rush like this in a long time, not even back at the practical exam. For this moment, he was Spider-Man. Oh, how he's missed this. He couldn't hold back his wide smile. He's back. Oh, the spider of UA is on a tear. Bakugou is pushing away Takoyami as he trails Todoroki and Yaoyorozu. Midoriya is nipping at the blonde bomber's heels. OHHHEDOESN't look happy. Oh, there comes Ida now. Now Class 1B's Tsunotori is zooming in. Peter let out an exhale, calmly. He fired with his web shooters towards the trees towards the end of the gorge. With one mighty pull, he launched towards the other end of the ravine, landing in a tumble before getting on his feet, going back in a run, not bothering to get any dust or dirt out of his head. He can hear the sound of more glaciers and blasts behind him. He inhaled, seeing him round the track in one massive curve. This felt like the last leg of the race. 2 obstacles. No, 3 since the entry gate was 1. Exhale. He can see the trees clear up as he veered from the left edge of the track to the middle as he saw the next obstacle. Parker is approaching the minefield. He isn't stopping again. What will he do now? Will he be able to see the mines, or be sent flying out of the race? So that's why there's an open dirt field. Peter felt his spine tingle and he took a massive leap. He looked down, barely making out some darker cover patches and spots on the ground. To the sides, billboards with skulls could be seen. He can't make out Present Mike's voice with all the adrenaline rushing in his veins as he inhaled, tuning out his teacher. To think that the school would implement a minefield. Has to be a non-lethal one but a troublesome one for any student or quirk user. Then again, same school employs building-sized robots. This shouldn't surprise him anymore. Peter landed on the ground, exhaling, spine no longer tingling as he took off in a run. He cleared the field in one giant leap. He can see the roaring stadium dead ahead, inhaling as he focused. Peter can see the tunnel ahead. Incredible. Peter Parker of Class 1A has blown this race up like a lead-key. No one has even touched the fall. Yeah, there is some who just got there. Peter raced through, a cloud of dust behind him as he blazed through the tunnel, and into the amazed cheers of the crowds as he returned to the stadium. Made it. And Parker has won the race. What a finish. Not since All Might has walked UA have we seen such a feat in terms of speed and technique. He ran like a Formula race car. He took off like a jet. I don't know how he did it, but he did. What do you say about your student eraser? Mike hyped up as Peter skidded to a stop, panting as he put his hands on his hips. He won this race to the best of his ability. Aizawa said lightly over the speakers, matter of fact. There you have it from Mumizawa, folks. Don't call me that. Phew. Peter wiped his brow as he looked around, the crowd on their feet as they howled in joy. He let out a light laugh, waving back to them. He stood there for a moment, just smiling, looking, waving. What an amazing performance. Come on over here, Parker-kun, to refuel. Midnight waved, standing over by a table with loads of water bottle and Gatorade cases to the side. And, oh, orange slices, Peter chirped, trotting over as he felt sweat gleam down his brow. The sexy-looking teacher winked down at him as he took some cutie oranges, munching down on a well-earned meal. He turned, looking up at the video boards around the stadium. How were his peers doing? Peter felt at ease as he saw the screen, seeing the first group of students hit the fall. Todoroki leapt onto a cord and began to slide using his ice. Yaoyorozu discarded her moped and went with a conjured grappling hook. Takoyami was pushing Dark Shadow ahead and pulling ahead. There was Pony, using her horns like a flying skateboard as she flew on in. At a girl, Peter muttered, beaming as he crammed some cutie oranges in his mouth. Right behind her, Izuku was avoiding blasts from a frothing and livid Bakugou, the green-haired boy glowing green as he did his best to avoid Bakugou. He smiled as he took a water bottle, opening it up. He was rooting for them. Well, most of them. How could this happen? A single fucking second out of the gate and Parker was already in the lead. And if that wasn't bad enough, Icy Hot couldn't even freeze the ground fast enough to stop the rest of the extras. Katsuki grit his teeth, unleashing an explosion that propelled him to the front of the gate. I ain't letting you off that easy, Icy Hot. But even as he said that, he wasn't the only one taking the chance. The blonde saw Horn Girl take flight of all things over the little flash freeze that Icy Hot had started. The red block had jumped straight through and even the rich girl got ahead using a pole to propel herself forward. Even Elbow Guy, Fancy Pants, and the bird even managed to avoid the crowd. Guess he gave Icy Hot's little trick a little too much credit if almost every extra from his class got out of it. The bird and the horn girl from the other class flew over the stunned mob of students, and they were behind the ice user. Katsuki grinned. He could handle this. Just blast them aside, get to the emo, blast him sky high, and then gun towards Parker. Then he would why. A green blur flashed past him, kicking off the wall next to him and getting ahead at a sprint. It hung in the air for a moment before it landed in front of him and took off after Icy Hot. Unmistakably, a mop of green hair signaled its arrival, green lightning trailing behind him. No, Katsuki almost tripped, eyes as wide as plates. A pit formed in his stomach, his blood chilling as he saw Bird and Horn Girl zoom past him. What the hell was that? Where did that ability come from? A few weeks ago all Deku could do was break his stupid arm like glass in a single shot. Now his quirk was doing this for him. It didn't make any sense. You couldn't just upgrade your quirk on the fly. Not that fast. It was impossible. You had to figure it out, to practice with it. He couldn't push himself like this with that recoil. Of all the people to overtake, it had to be him. Yet Deku could just pull this shit out of his ass like he'd. Was he holding back again back then? Put up all that to mock him. On national TV too. Eno. Katsuki clenched his fist so hard that it felt like his explosive quirk would set off a warhead in his hand. Is this what he was going for? Every single event, when he thought it would be a good time to show off, he would just reveal another facet of his power that he'd just been hiding. Just to rub it in his face again. That slimy little Deku. That fucking snake. Hey, Katsuki roared, where the hell do you think you're going? DEKU. UFUCKER. He let loose another explosion behind him, rocketing the boy closer to the front, past the extras into his true targets. He landed with his legs already in motion, pushing off like a sprinter just as he always practiced, arms behind him firing at turbo speed. The tell-all sound of machinery moving caused him to look away from those two and onto the little display that the UA staff tried to pass off as an obstacle. Even the old zero-pointers wouldn't be a threat. But as Katsuki got closer, he could already see they were occupied with something else. Icy Hot unleashed a wave of ice, turning a zero-pointer into a popsicle. The metal creaked, a few of the extras yelling in excitement at the new opening that Icy Hot ran towards. Idiots, it was a false opening, one that would crush them the second that gravity took hold. Even so, Katsuki grit his teeth. These extras, declaring wars, getting ahead of him, preaching bullshit of serving and mentors like some weakling. Lying about quirks, wanting to be a hero, hiding behind croc tears and a wimpy demeanor for over a goddamn decade to make him look like a dumbbass. Again and again. Who the fuck do you think you are? Katsuki roared, red eyes blazing in fury. He launched himself forward, through the dust cloud and the stupid zero-pointer that dared to get in his way. Its red eyes blinked at him as he smashed into it. Katsuki put his palms flat against the machine's head, and his explosions tore through the pathetic piece of tin like it was made of wet cardboard. With barely a discernible effort, he rode the scrap pile to the ground, pushing himself forward with another blast when another explosion echoed throughout the clearing. He looked back, seeing some of the zero-pointers get stunned and their heads smoking. That sounded like a fucking cannon. Who had a quirk they could do? He shook his head. Katsuki needed to focus. He was in front. He could see Icy Hot ahead, Deku behind him with Horn Girl. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Did you think those were going to stop me? He roared, the wind screaming in his ears. The finish line already in his mind's eye, Katsuki flew onward, using his blasts to propel him after the quartet who were ahead of him, and the prize he aimed to take, Parker's spot in the totem pole. Well, that was certainly something. Shoto certainly expected such feats out of some of his class. They'd already proven themselves worthwhile in combat. But the stream of students that followed him after his opening salvo was somewhat disappointing. He didn't want to put on the ice too thick. Speed was the goal in this scenario, but clearly, he needed to put more power in such a move next time. He didn't hold anything back when faced with the zero-pointers. Couldn't afford to. Besides, they slowed a lot of the herd back there when he froze one with a glacier on purpose. The obstacles that had bored him even so far back as the recommendation exam made him long for a test that was a little more threatening. Though, for his complaints, it did give him a chance to set an example for the old man. In the back of his mind, the traitorous part of his brain commented on how he could simply jet over the mechs, setting himself down with his fire, or use the fire to melt the robots to slow down the students behind him and focus entirely on Parker. He dismissed those thoughts as quickly as they came. Not a chance. Not here, especially not in front of all these people. Not in front of the old man. He would rather die than give him the satisfaction. For now, there was another problem that awaited him. He figured Parker to be someone who stuck to the rest of the group, cracking jokes and bumbling like a fool to trip everyone up. Clearly, he was mistaken on more than one front. Shoto always assumed that the American suit was what gave him such a notable increase in his abilities. Yes, the application test had him physically at the top, but Shoto didn't think the margin between them was this wide. He growled to himself. He'd underestimated Parker again. Damn it, the old man was watching, and this was the showing he was giving. Glancing behind him, the rest of his peers were putting on a far better showing than him. Yaoyorozu was laying down support fire with a bazooka, bringing down another zero-pointer. The main threats were little more than speed bumps to his fellow students. Spectacular, Shoto leaped as high as he could over a down three-pointer, summoning an ice slide underneath himself. He could see Parker ahead, the dust evident of his speed. If he could get close, he could simply freeze his webbing or leg and bring him down. Shoto felt his hair stand on end as he could feel someone gaining on him. He turned his head slightly and saw that Midoriya was right behind him. Shoto's eyes widened. When did he get this fast? Bakugou. Bakugou came roaring in, firing off explosive blasts to catch the green-haired boy off guard. Midoriya jumped away with a yelp, trying to avoid the explosions. But be careful. The next obstacle for Parker is the fan howl. You hit rock bottom, you're out, came Present Mike's voice, and Shoto perked up as he focused on his run. He's already at the next obstacle, Shoto thought aloud, and he conjured his ice, allowing him to surge down the path. The dust cloud was gone and the heterochromatic-eyed boy bared his teeth in frustration. He couldn't afford to lose. Not like this. There, Momo kicked aside her howitzer as she felt a thud land behind her. Done. She grabbed her motor-powered skateboard as the other students ran around the wreckage of the robots. Momo kicked herself mentally for getting caught in that mob. But seeing Peter jump through the entry gate was a masterstroke. He'd inspired her and her peers to leap on through. She threw the skateboard to the ground and got on, speeding off as she felt the clamps tighten around her feet and sped through some surprised students who made way to avoid getting run over. Make way. Hey, what the hell? Where did she get that? Is she in support? That's cheating. Momo smirked a little as she went on ahead. Ha 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 ha. I got you now, you class of thought. Chortled some purple-haired ball kid who looked super short, zooming in as he pulled out some purple balls from his head. I'll just hitch a ride to the good life and take your spot. Only fair that you repay us all, he monologued. Since all you and your stupid class have done is bring trouble on our school you. Target acquired. Destroy. And a one-pointer robot came from nowhere from the side and swung, hitting the kid. The punch from the robot sent the shorty flying. Momo had to duck as the loudmouth's tiny form soared out into the track. Guess he's not out ye. Eat this you creep. A general ed student who looked like a beige-coated red-eyed cat girl spun around, bashing him with two flaming tails. He was launched once again into the air. That's for being in the girls' locker room. yelled another. The dark-haired girl swatted at him with long and black fingernails, apparently having elongated like spears. Laura, a green-haired girl, fired out her arm, string attached to her from the forearm to elbow as it connected to the purple-haired boy's cheek, sending him flying out of the track, into a tree, and down to the ground. Mine to Minoru. Retire, said a camera bot as Momo raced past some of her peers. She could hear the general education students jeer at her and see some girls give a thumbs up. What a strange student, Momo mused before her train of thought was cut off by Present Mike. He's still going. Is he gonna jump? Momo perked up. Peter-san. Oh right, he was still far ahead. She had to catch up. The black-haired beauty put more pressure on the gas and floored it. Mine to Minoru twitched as he landed in the bushes, eyes downcast as he realized that he was the first one to be kicked out of the race. He raised his head. Maybe mom was right. I should have been a dentist. Or dad may have some internship openings. His newspaper was looking to hire new people. Maybe he could get girls that way. He 1005. Minoru's face met the dirt as he sighed upon hearing Present Mike's voice. Damn that class 1A. Just damn them. The tires of her skateboard screeched as Momo maintained her momentum, the other contestants up ahead as she turned. Those few days practicing in that horse race track had definitely paid off. Todoroki was leading the pack, with Takoyami and Tsunotori making fast progress. But behind them, Midoriya was dodging a rampaging bakugou. Kaken, we have a race to finish. Go to hell, you snake. I'm making sure that you lose first. Bakugou barked, swiping as he ran, Midoriya avoiding a blast. After all this shit you've pulled, your word to me is dead. Dead? Momo continued to drive, thinking over her options. Smirking, she began to put her quirk to work, her stomach glowing as the canister of a paintball gun emerged. Oh, no you don't, yelled a voice as Momo ducked a swipe, yelping as she maintained control on her motor-powered board. The black-haired beauty looked behind her as she began to overtake the bickering Midoriya and Bakugou. Takoyami's gaze was in her direction, sprinting as Dark Shadow was out, its glowing gold eyes on her as it sped forth. I won't let you stop us, Takoyami declared. Dark Shadow, don't let her make anything. Roger. The shadow construct obeyed, and while Takoyami lagged behind, the beast was able to pull Takoyami up in big mighty leaps. While in the air, the fast shadow he had created zoomed in on Momo. The girl growled, swerving to the side to avoid a strike as she managed to overtake them both. She put the pedal to the metal, gaining on Todoroki as she slowed down, reaching to her stomach to bring forth her conjured paintball gun with web balls in the ammo container. She aimed, but Todoroki seemed to notice as he stopped his ice surge forward, running as before as he looked back. He growled, and with a swipe of his arm, summoned a massive surge of ice. She fired a few shots, but she had to bail out now. Crap. Momo had to toss the gun as she abandoned her trusty skateboard. But she was ready for this. She conjured a bodyboard from her back, causing her shirt to be torn from the back, and she was left in her sports bra. Momo grabbed it and turned, using it to skid off the ground to soften her landing. Momo yelped as she hung on, bouncing and skidding. She got up on her feet, staggering a little before breaking out into a run. She was behind Todoroki still, going around his ice wall. No time to pick up the paintball rifle, had to focus on the race. Back off birdbrain, yelled Bakugou behind her as she heard more explosions, looking back to see the blonde bomber stun Dark Shadow as he had overtaken him. He then went into turbo speed, blasting forth. And stay in your lane, rich girl, he roared, gaining on her before Midoriya sprinted past, brushing aside Bakugou. His red eyes surged with fury as he roared, going after the green-haired boy who seemed as intent on catching up as he was. Momo bit her inner cheek. Think, conjuring another skateboard may take too much. He's back. Oh you the spider of UA is on a tear. Bakugou is pushing away Takoyami as he trails Todoroki and Yaoyorozu. Midoriya is nipping at the blonde bomber's heels. OHHHEDOES and look happy. Oh, there comes Ida now. Thou class 1B's Tsunotori is zooming in. Momo's eyes widened as she glanced back. Sure enough, the dust cloud that was Ida was coming up quickly. She needed to slow him down. In raw speed, Ida would outpace anything that she could make. And behind him, Tsunotori was gaining as well, hugging the left side of the track like a racehorse while flying on her horns like a skateboard. She was in her sports bra and pants, but this wouldn't get to her. Be like Midnight. Be proud and don't be ashamed of revealing too much. Her quirk needed as much skin as possible to be exposed anyway. Momo conjured 2 flashbangs in her arms, catching them as she grabbed them. Earbuds formed in her ears. As she did, she sensed Midoriya and Bakugou to her right, fighting amongst themselves. Takoyami right behind her, given how Dark Shadow was obscuring the ground, and Tenyu was about to pass her by on the left. Parker is approaching the minefield. He isn't stopping again. What will he do now? Will he be able to see the mines, or be sent flying out of the race? The reactions of her classmates upon hearing that Peter had gotten to the next obstacle made them perk up. That was her opening. How about this? She threw them up in the air and closed her eyes as the twin flashbangs detonated, stunning all involved as she went on ahead. The force of the twin flash grenades made her stagger, but it didn't stop her run. Dead ahead, she saw the obstacle that Present Mike spoke of earlier. The fall. Incredible. Peter Parker of Class 1 has blown this race up like a ledecky. No one has even touched the fall. There are some who just got there. Todoroki had paused before jumping onto a cord, zooming down it with his ice. Momo felt a pit in her gut. This was gonna slow her down big time. Take the cords. No. Peter got across this obstacle no sweat. And he was approaching the end too. Got to catch up. Which meant that he used his web shooters, a line to swing across. The Black Beauty began to get to work, her midsection glowing as she got to creating a new handy-dandy item. Damn, I need to get across, Izuku said aloud as he jumped to the side, avoiding a blast from Kaken. His childhood friend was frothing with anger as he aimed and swung at him, using his turbo speed to propel himself ahead of his old friend at every opportunity. Izuku bit his cheek whenever he had a chance to pass Kaken. He blocked him off like a race car. He couldn't afford to lose here. Parker was already so far ahead. He knew that his friend was strong. He never knew the divide between him and the American student was so wide. He needed to tell the world I am here. As grateful as he was to Parker for helping him get one step closer to mastering One for All, he'd told Todoroki that he wasn't gonna hold back. Then again, neither did Peter. Maybe that's what Izuku got for poking the bear. They got to the edge of the fall as Todoroki got to the next spire, running across the platform and riding his ice along a cord. And Parker has won the race. What a finish. Not since All Might has walked UA's halls have we seen such a feat in terms of speed and technique. He ran like a Formula race car. He took off like a jet. I don't know how he did it, but he did. What do you have to say about your student, Eraser? He's already won. Izuku gasped. So there was only one more obstacle after this, the minefield. Got him it. Kaken roared as he blasted off, flying over the ravine. I'll get you next time, Deku. You hear me? He looked back as Izuku looked at the cords and gulped. The spires were a good distance away. Maybe one leap while using One for All could work. No, he couldn't risk it. If he missed, he would fall and be out of the race. Slow and steady as Mom says, Izuku muttered, going to a cord and hanging from it as he began to make his way across. His muscles and lungs burned from the running, but this wasn't as bad as his training while cleaning up the beach. His training had paid off, and using One for All, his body glowed as he began to move faster. Here I go. Tsunotori whooped as she flew across with her horns above him. He saw Dark Shadow extend across the abyss and pull Takoyami to a spire. Izuku gritted his teeth, and he began to go down the cord faster, finally reaching the spire. He got up, taking a breather as he looked around. Todoroki was several spires ahead, and Kaken was using his explosion to launch himself forward, but the two seemed to be neck and neck. I see that you're copying me, Midoriya-chan, yelled a voice as Izuku looked across to another platform as he got down to get across to the next platform. Tsuyu was there smiling as she walked the tightrope using her hands and feet. Unlike Izuku, who had to hang upside down, she was still upright. Well, gotta make sure I make it across. Izuku yelled back with a light grin. You holding up? Tsuyu-san, whoa. Izuku lost his grip before reclaiming it. He clammed up, hanging onto the tightrope. Good catch. And I'm doing good. You look great yourself. Hurry it up though. Others are getting to the beginning and will catch up. She encouraged as she pitter-pattered across the tightrope. Izuku took a deep breath, body glowing with One for All as he began to skitter to the next platform. He got there and looked up. Takoyami was ahead of him, and Todoroki and Kaken were near the end. My older brother is watching me. I must look as proper as a member of the Ida family. Ida yelled as Izuku turned, seeing the class secretary use his engine to skid across the rope to the next spire. Arms out wide, and was he T-posing? He looked so lame. Present Mike hollered and Izuku turned. Other platforms were close by. If he could time it right, he'd get across with a leap. Izuku focused, conjuring his power as heat gathered in his body. He dashed forward and with one mighty leap, Izuku yelled as he landed on the next platform. Phew, okay, that was faster than tightroping. Izuku turned ahead, seeing that Todoroki and Kaken were at the end. Here we go, Izuku yelled as he ran, green lightning emitting from his body as he took a great leap, landing on a nearby platform. He grinned. I can do this. He backed off, ready to jump before he noticed some mad cackling. Watch out, world. Behold ye mighty in despair while gazing upon my babies, yelled a female voice as a pink-haired girl reeled herself from one spire to the next using her own support gear. Hook shots attached to some vests then. Were those hover boots? She was laughing like a madwoman too. Right behind her, a massive tangle of green vines was on the move, moving from one spire to another like a slinky going down some stairs. What kind of quirk was that? Notice me companiees. I made it Thrawoog, yelled a voice as Izuku jumped to the next spire, and she saw a very flustered and scared Yaoyorozu swinging up by courtesy of a grappling hook. She had another one too in her free arm as she aimed, firing it at the end of the fall. No time to get distracted. Time to catch up. WOOHOOO. That's what I quote am talking about. Mount Lady shrieked, pumping her arms. Close by in the stands, Kamui Woods had to cover his ears. His fellow hero had her eyes glued to the screen along the stadium's vendor area, practically pushing civilians aside to see the boy, Parker, complete his race. Her excitement had been tame at first, a glance or two while they went on their patrols, but this was getting ridiculous. Just let her go, Death Arms said in resignation. I don't think she'll be listening to us. She could at least take her job seriously, Shinji muttered. Death Arms shrugged. Sure, but think about it this way. She can't exactly wiggle out of anything else today now that you've got this to bring up. Shinji perked up. The older hero had a point there. However, there was still something bugging him. That kid, Parker, his name ring a bell to you? Sure does, Death Arms confirmed. He was the vigilante that showed up during Mount Lady's debut. The Spider Kid? Shinji asked, befuddled. That kid swung right into an active villain takedown, crashing into Mount Lady if he recalled things correctly. That wasn't all either. Shinji remembered personally bringing him to the police after he got knocked out. He also remembered putting you on guard duty for her little stunt that very same day. How'd he get into UA? Shinji asked. Death Arms shrugged. Don't know. Transfer from America from what I remember reading. The report was an oversight. You know how American heroes operate. Jump in first kinda mentality. Shinji raised an eyebrow at the casualness of the comment, but he didn't argue. He simply watched as his partner continued to gush over, apparently, her ward's success. Still, kid's got a future ahead of him. Shinji chuckled. You might as well say that about all those hero course kids. See any that catch your eye? Death Arms nodded, pointing at the camera as it showed a blonde that was throwing explosions at his peers, knocking them back before they could overtake him. Kid looks like he's got some power. I'd worry more about the screaming, Shinji pointed out. Again the large hero shrugged. Can't win them all, and it gives us a place to start. What about you? Shinji hummed as the camera drifted over the students. The bird-headed student with his shadow was expertly dodging attacks as well as creating openings for himself. The kid that looked like a carbon copy of Ingenium looked like he had a smart head on his shoulders. If he was being perfectly honest, he could pick out something for each of them. That being said, I'll wait till the second event to tell you. Death Arms nodded. All yours, but anyway we should be. The big man stopped, glaring at the sight in front of him. Mount Lady, for the last time you can't take free samples. But they're so good, she complained, bag full of Pocky. I forgot to eat breakfast. Shinji rubbed his now aching forehead. This day couldn't end fast enough. Incredible. That was a word Aizawa tossed about in his head as Present Mike yelled color commentary to the crowd. Todoroki and Bakugou were neck and neck as they fired ice surges and explosive blasts at each other as they approached the minefield. The USJ incident, while traumatic and something he would not wish upon anyone, had tempered his students in a crucible. Midoriya, by hook or by crook, got that self-destructive quirk under control. He was able to keep pace with Bakugou and the others in his class at the start of the race, and even took out some robots. He could now save people, and with that head of his, he'd have a good and long hero career ahead of him. Yaoyorozu's confidence and skill on the fly was nothing short of outstanding. Using her gear not to slow down her opponents but focusing on the race at hand allowed her to get ahead to the top 10 spots, and she got to the other side courtesy of 2 grappling hook shots and a comfy medicine ball to land on to resume her chase. Aizawa had no words. All of his students were doing well. Ashido was emulating Ida and sliding across the cords. Isui, Ajiro, Shoji, Takoyami, and even Aoyama were traversing the fall no problem. Uraraka was taking it slow and steady using her gravity jump. And there were many in Vlad's class that were excelling, and Aizawa made note of 2. The one that Parker was apparently friends with before getting to UA, and the Catholic girl. Bakugou and Todoroki have made it to the minefield. Tsunotori and Ida are hot on their tails. Midoriya made it across, passing over Yaoyorozu, and now he's gaining on them quick, fast, and in a hurry. Your students have been killing it today, Mamazawa. Aizawa groaned. Don't call me that. Anyways, the ones in front have undergone a baptism by fire. They came prepared for this, Aizawa replied. You can say that again. Heck, you may just have the next All Might in your class. Aizawa's eyes went from the screens to the arena, seeing Parker cheering his fellow students on as he looked up at the screens. A kind boy, reverting back to the bumbling joker the second that the danger was over. His eyes panned over to the teacher's box, seeing Yagi in his thin form watching with some of the other teachers, and they narrowed. Mike's words. Once the festival and his class's internships were over, he was getting back to his investigation ASAP, because if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, acts like a duck, it ain't a damn mongoose. His eyes went back to the screens, and Aizawa saw Bakugou and Todoroki making slow progress across the minefield. But it was Bakugou who was pulling ahead whenever Todoroki didn't fire any ice surges at him. Parker's curb stomp victory had lit a fire under them, and now they were doing their damnedest to fight for second place. The look on their faces, cold rage in Todoroki's, and white-hot fury in the blondes, was evident. They were mad at the circumstances and at themselves. Parker was on top, and they were definitely gunning for him. Here comes Tsunotori now. She's flying over the minefield, no sweat. I can do this, Pony muttered as she flew down low, head aching as she had used her horns from the very beginning of the race. Seeing Peter jump over the stuck crowd got her the idea, and it had definitely helped, as her using some general ed students to hop over Todoroki's ice freeze paid handsome dividends. Shizaki was doing really good, essentially making herself into a massive ball of vines and rolling across the track like an Indiana Jones boulder with a mind of its own. She had to get past the explosive obstacles, then she could book it in a run. She was approaching Todoroki and Bakugou, who were fighting with each other for second place, as Todoroki paid extra care to not step on any landmines, while Bakugou simply used his blasts to keep him aloft as he swiped at the bicolor-haired boy. They were bickering too, and she could barely make out the words war and me in their tussle of words. Present Mike's commentary made the two turn their heads, and Pony felt two pairs of eyes, one icy green and the other fiery red, turn on her, making her blood freeze. Both of their teeth were bared. Get lost. Divided by die, they yelled, firing a combined explosive blast and ice surge right at her. Gah! Pony mustered the willpower to veer to the side, head aching as she avoided their mutual assault. She was on two horns, that was her limit right now. She could use one of the horns on her head to retaliate, but that would make her teeter towards the ground. Fine, you wanna play rough, Pony muttered in English. I'll play ya, she roared as she zoomed forth, rising high above on her two horns. She could see the racers behind her slow down. She saw the green-haired kid, Yaoyorozu, Shizaki, the crow-head boy, approach the minefield. Right now, to beat that exploding jerk and Endeavor's kid, she had to go beyond. Watch me, Ma, Pa, Peter, plus Ultra Texas style. And she kicked off her horns, using her hooves to aim them downwards, right in front of the two fighting boys. The horns struck the darker mine patches, and the pink explosion engulfed them all, the force pushing her back as two more horns popped up on her head. Alright, she got back down, landing on her two new horns, and began to zoom towards the minefield exit. What a move by Class 1B's Pony Tsunotori. She took out Todoroki and Bakugou from Class 1A with two well-aimed horn strikes and is about to lock up second place. Oh wait, here comes the cavalry. Present Mike yelled over the speakers, making the blonde perk up, who was coming in fast over the minefield. Huh? Recipru burst. Pony looked back, seeing the Ida boy take long strides, face contorted in concentration as he did his utmost to get through the minefield. Pink explosions going off behind him. From the other side of the track, a cacophony of explosions occurred as Ibara rolled towards her. Pony gasped and got closer to the exit, only for a massive explosion to ring out from the beginning of the minefield. What's this? Someone setting off the mines on purpose? Pony's heart fell the moment she saw the person gaining on her using the explosion. Yaoyorozu had a face full of determination as she came in flying across the field, another motor-powered skateboard screaming as it rolled over the mines one by one. Pink explosions behind her as if she was in an action movie with those pants and sports bra of hers. Anyone that was close enough got a face full of detonations, knocking them aside as the black-haired beauty pushed for the lead. She was also using the path having been tread by Bakugou and Todoroki, one that now featured fewer mines thanks to their combined efforts. Yaoyorozu is gunning for first in this race. Pony saw her pass by below her. Scratch that. She's taken the lead. Pony grit her teeth, eyes alit in anger. No you don't. This is my moment, not yours. The blonde growled as she conjured a horn and sent it flying at the black-haired girl. Pony had come this far. She wouldn't let her get another win. Pony was flying forward as her control on her horns made her stagger, and as she got to the edge of the minefield she was teetering close to the ground as her third horn was aimed for the incoming Yaoyorozu. Beside her, the massive vine boulder of Ibara was rolling in, and to the side, Ida was charging forth, both of them utilizing the new road created by Yaoyorozu. Behind her, she could see Todoroki and Bakugou sprinting forth as they no longer cared about fighting each other. Sorry everyone. Yaoyorozu saw her horn coming in. She propped herself up on the seat. I'm gonna win, she roared, and twisted her feet on the seat as she kicked it down to the ground and she sprung forward. And her new skateboard exploded like a prime grenade as it collided against a mine. Pony yelled as the pink dust overtook her, sending her flying through the opening in Ibara's vine boulder and into the girl herself. Ibara quickly lost control of her quirk and they rolled in a tumble. Yaoyorozu was in front. Yaoyorozu has taken the lead. She's in the home stretch now. Momo's lungs burned hotter than she ever thought they could. Every step felt like a mile with her stomach churning in displeasure, the results of her quirk dragging her down. Her arms pumped, but she didn't let herself slow down. The end was so close, just a final push into the tunnel and out again and she'd be across the finish line. Just a few more steps. Please, please let this work. Without looking back, she threw her last creation, a single container of Parker's web fluid. It wasn't much, but she had nothing left. Maybe if she was lucky. What is this? Her luck held. For a second, she had the strength to smile. Momo dug in her heels, putting just a little more into this final push. It was so close, she could see the light at the end of the tunnel. But the sound of thundering footsteps echoed in her ears. She closed her eyes. No, she was so close, but she pressed on, gunning it. But it wasn't enough. Momo felt herself tilt forward, and everything she had left went into one last jump, arms outstretched. One last chance to make it though. Time seemed to slow. She opened her eyes, hoping, pleading for nothing to be close, only to see the edge of a blonde horn edge forward from her left, and a roaring class secretary coming up fast on the right. Time returned to normal, and Momo fell to the ground in a heap. On the plus side, she heard two other people hit the ground close to her. The three of them were close, too close. Pony was on her side on the ground, having leapt cross using her horns, groaning while Ida was panting hard, hands on his knees. Was it enough? Did she get close enough to take it? I can't believe it. We have a photo finish for the ages. Present Mike's voice roared from one of no doubt dozens of speakers all around the stadium. I don't even know who got across, I couldn't tell, but let's look to the Jumbotron for that sweet frame-by-frame action. Momo forced her neck to crane up. She had to see. She couldn't deal with anything less than concrete proof. Up there, on the mighty screen above, a picture-perfect recreation of the entrance streamed for all to see. She could see herself, drenched in sweat, desperately trying to edge forward as much as she could. Only, Pony's horns were just a little bit further than her fingers could reach. Momo's face fell down to the unforgiving dirt. She clenched her hands. She hadn't fast enough. There you have it, ladies and gents. After the closest second-place run in sports festival history. I can't believe it. After an amazing comeback, Pony Tsunotori edges out for second place, followed by Yaoyorozu, Momo, and Ida Tenya. I'm on the edge of my seat. Will this madness ever end? Present Mike howled as the crowd roared in approval, entertained and cheering for the prospects. Yeah, that's the point of a finish line, said Aizawa's drawl as it came through. Momo could barely move. It took all she had left to look back up, feeling a shadow loom over her, where Parker was standing over her, a bottle of water in one hand and an orange in the other. Cutie, he offered, grin on his face. And despite herself, Momo could help but laugh. I'd love one, she said. Well, you're in luck. They've got a ton of them over by the stands, Parker said, handing over the offered food and helping her to her feet before turning to the lump of blonde hair close by. Pony, your horns can blow up too, he asked, helping his fellow American to her feet as well. The blonde blushed a little at the proximity, something she tried to play off by scratching her head awkwardly. Not really. Just aimed them towards a mine is all. Still, that was so awesome. Parker finished. How do you make them fly? Honestly, Pony, your horns don't obey the laws of physics. Your power is so cool. You were flying in as if you were on a flying skateboard. He turned back towards Momo. And you were fantastic too, Momo. You got across the fall using my move. Momo blushed, laughing a bit. That's so. Well, I had to get across as fast as possible somehow. The grappling hooks were my best option. Yeah, Hunt. Peter looked down, seeing that Momo had lost her shirt and was in her pants and shoes and sports bra. Dirt and dust covered her, along with a hot sheen of sweat. Parker bit his lip and looked away. You gonna be alright being so? G-O-O-D-D-D-A-M-M-I-I-T-T-T-T. Momo, who was about to reassure Peter that her lack of a shirt was fine, turned around just in time to see a massive explosion rock the finish line. A frothing, livid bakugou was staring at Midoriya, who was panting in the area in front of him, hands on his knees. Todoroki came in right after with an ice surge, landing in a tumble as he panted, steam coming off of him as he defrosted. The bomber's bloodshot eyes snapped to Parker, who seemingly knew when bakugou was going to look at him as he glanced back at the perfect time. Bakugou bore a hole in Parker's head with his sight, but Peter simply took a bite of an orange. The blonde tisked and moved away, frustrated and angry. He looks angry. That is quite the obvious statement, Parker, Takoyami pointed out, casually taking his place as he arrived. Parker-san, Kamita, who marched over, hand-clutching water bottle. You did an exemplary job. For you to jump over the crowd and not to engage with the robots in the first obstacle, your judgment is truly admirable. As your class secretary, I am proud to have you as my representative, but I must admonish myself for not seeing such a thing sooner. For the teachers have. He's gonna ramble for a while, ain't he? Peter muttered over towards Momo, to which the dark-haired girl could only chuckle as a great mass of vines came surging in while Ida continued to toss out word salad. You can say that again. Let's wait for the others and cheer them on. Peter beamed, nodding. You got it. Let's try and help Midori up first though. Guy looks like he ran a marathon. Well, he technically did, Suo. The two walked over together towards the panting boy. Momo could see the simmering glare that Todoroki was sending their way as the boy was still crouching on the ground, slamming a fist into it before getting back up and storming towards the water bottle and orange tables. Yagi Toshinori thought he would see a lot of things today. The sports festival was the perfect opportunity to strut your stuff, as it were. He said as much to young Midoriya before he started training, and there was no doubt in his mind that everyone was showing their best. Still, the American casually eating oranges in the middle of the field, sitting down and watching the other students, was getting to be a bit much. He didn't expect Parker to clear this event so fast. He told Midoriya to tell the world that he was here. Instead, he was lumped in the pack with the top 10 finishers. But still, he managed to properly utilize one for all in the field, even using it to avoid an angry bakugou, and use it to jump great distances. This was a far cry from where he was 2 weeks ago, where a single usage of one for all meant a visit with Recovery Girl. Midoriya didn't shoot for the stars, but he landed on the moon. That was a great starting point, and Toshinori felt pride blossom inside him. Still, Midoriya's path to become the next All Might, the next symbol of peace and justice, had hit a roadblock. An American brown-haired one who was good friends with Midoriya as he was busy talking with him and his peers. Present Mike said it best, no one in UA history had finished the obstacle race faster than All Might. The next one to come close, off by 20 seconds, was Peter Parker. The trek to climb got tougher, no doubt about it. Still, he didn't expect this from Parker at all. I'll be damned, Toshinori muttered. Next to him, 13 and Snipe nodded their agreement. Honestly, good for him, Snipe commented. Aizawa's apparently been having trouble getting him to take something seriously. I guess, Toshinori shrugged. The domed head of 13 glanced his way. Not happy with the first place winner there, Yagi, the space-themed hero asked. Toshinori grimaced, waving his hands placatingly. No, I'm happy for him. He's my student after all. Though, even as he said that, he had been hoping for a different result. The starting event could have been step 1 on young Midoriya's quest forward. He was a good kid, so much so that he deserved the title as his successor, but he was a hero that wanted to save others. That core desire went completely against what the sports festival was about, in a competition sense at least. Bad as he was to admit his part in it, heroes nowadays depended on popular opinion to stay afloat and relevant in their new profession. It had gotten to the point that in events like this, those that sought to beat everyone else no matter the cost were the ones who normally succeeded. Not the best though, but if it kept producing quality heroes, Toshinori wouldn't cry home about it. Doesn't look like he has to, Snipe commented, the gunslinger hero craning his neck upward. Looks like Endeavor's hogging the disappointment all to himself. Toshinori and 13 shifted their gaze to where the gunslinger was looking. Sure enough, Endeavor was seething, his fiery beard growing white-hot to the point that the civilians around him were starting to get out of their seats, sweat pouring out of them just from being near him. He was biting his lip, and Toshinori could see red dripping from it. The guardrail that served as the number 2 hero's support actually melted in his hands as he pushed off, stalking away, leaving charred footprints in his wake. And I thought he was a hothead before, 13 muttered. Understatement of the century where Toshinori was concerned. Endeavor looked like a man who had things he wanted to say, and while Toshinori couldn't even dream of Endeavor hurting pedestrians and his students, there was nothing stopping him from having some choice words for the students participating. The hidden number 1 hero glanced back at the finish line and spotted a certain head of red and white hair. The young hero in question was drenched in sweat from his sprint, but he still eyed the sidelines of the stands. Toshinori felt an inkling of disappointment rise in him as well. Despite what Endeavor felt about the results, this was an important moment for his son that he should see. "I'll talk to him in a minute," Toshinori promised. "You sure you wanna wait?" Snipe asked. "No time like the present. Don't worry, it'll have my undivided attention in a moment. Gotta do something first." He felt both the heroes next to him quirk up their eyebrows, but Toshinori paid them no mind. He simply stared at the finish line, where a green head of hair laced in lightning had come through shortly before Endeavor's son. His protege was standing up, panting, yet he looked around until he found Toshinori sitting there in the teacher's box, grinning. And Toshinori met his stare with a bony smile and a thumbs up. His successor returned a shaky thumbs up himself, only to get distracted as his peers began to talk to him. Ida and Parker specifically. "Got a soft spot for Midoriya there, Yagi?" Snipe asked. "Something like that. Tell me the highlights when I get back." "Will do," 13 said. Toshinori waved the two heroes farewell, walking as casually as he could to the nearest bathroom. Not the best place to transform, but options were limited in an event as televised and populated as the sports festival. Protected by the stalls, the number 1 hero powered up and immediately made his way to the stairwell. It wasn't hard to pick up Endeavor's trail. No one else was raising the temperature by 40 degrees Celsius around him. He caught him right at the edge of the 3rd floor, and All Might put on his best smile. "Hey there, Endeavor," Toshinori declared. The fire hero actually crushed the guardrail at his side. And if looks could kill, Toshinori would be having some tea with Nana right now, not enjoying the festival. Enji huffed. "Got that through that thick skull of yours. Do me a favor and find some talk show to waste your time on." He turned away, but Toshinori wasn't going to let him go. He leaped in front of him, forcing the hero to stop as he leaned against the wall amicably. His former classmate didn't look amused, licking the cut on his lip, green eyes wanting to bore right through him. "Oh come now, Endeavor, don't be like that. It's been such a long time that I thought we could at least say hello." Endeavor flinched at that. Guess he could still surprise the fiery hero after all these years. "You actually have something to say then?" "Speaking truthfully, I was hoping that I could ask you what's gotten you so hot under the collar. Never knew you for one to cause distractions during events like this, even if a professional like yourself takes your job seriously doing security. I was wondering if I could help. Is it family problems? Eat something that didn't agree with you?" Enji stared at Toshinori for a long moment, the fire on his fist going white hot and making All Might internally beg for a swift breeze. His eye was twitching in barely constrained anger. "That's what you're on about. Well," Toshinori said, "hands up and surrender. If it's nothing, I'm sorry for wasting your time." "Now you're sorry," Endeavor scoffed. "That's a first, as if making that copy of yours and bringing him here wasn't enough." Toshinori flinched. Was he talking about young Midoriya? Wait, did he know? The fiery hero turned back, and there was a challenge in the number 2's eyes. "I don't care what you've given that boy. But it doesn't matter if he has everything that you had or whatever advantages or favors you pulled in. I'll mold Shoto into a hero who surpasses you, regardless of what obstacles you put in the way. That's the only reason that I created him. My creation will surpass yours. You won't beat me again, All Might. Do you hear me?" Todoroki and G roared, and some people far off who were walking the concourse hurried back into their suites or bathrooms as the number 2 hero glared down the number 1. Creation. What in the world did he mean? Toshinori felt his hands start to clench, but he let the hero go. This particular stairway was going to the break room for the rest of the security staff. Even so, it would probably be best for young Midoriya and the rest if he watched from their waiting areas. "Wait, hold on, Endeavor." He got to the bottom of the stairway, seeing the black and red hero sulk off. "Get lost. I have a job to do," he roared back, not even turning to face him as Toshinori recoiled a little. Endeavor marched away down the hallway. "Oh dear, whatever pickle did I get myself into?" Still, he began to walk up the stairs to use the restroom to change back. Young Todoroki was already damaged. If his father had all that in mind, what could he do? He perked up at the sound of the fireworks. The race was over. With a crack of her whip, Midnight swung her tool around as all the students were in the stadium. "It's finally over, let's check out the results. For the next event, the ones who will advance are the top 32. And they are." As one, the stadium looked to the Jumbotron as the list began to file in, starting from the first place down. Shoto narrowed his eyes as he gripped his fists, biting his lower lip. The pictures panned over the top 32. 1. Peter Parker. 2. Pony Tsunotori. 3. Yaoyorozu Momo. 4. Ida Tenya. 5. Midoriya Izuku. 6. Bakugou Katsuki. 7. Todoroki Shoto. 8. Shizaki Ibara. 9. Honuki Juzo. 10. Takoyami Fumikage. 11. Shiro Hanta. 12. Takage Setsuna. 13. Kirishima Ijiro. 14. Tetsu 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 Tetsu. 15. Ajiro Mashirao. 16. Oase Yause. 17. Asui Tsuyu. 18. Shoji Mizo. 19. Sato Rikido. 20. Uraraka Achako. 21. Ashido Mina. 22. Hatsume. 23. Jiru Kyoka. 24. Shinso Hitoshi. 25. Shishida Jiroda. 26. Kurwaro Shihai. 27. Kendo Itsuka. 28. Monoma Nido. 29. Kaminari Denki. 29. Kaibara Sen. 30. Kamakiri Tagaru. 31. Rin Huryu. 32. Hagakure Toru. Parker was socializing with Yaoyorozu, Ida and Kirishima without a care in the world, and Tsunotori herself was getting swamped by her Class B peers for doing so well. Takage in particular seemed overjoyed. The top 32 from this qualifying round will move on, Midnight declared. But if you didn't make it, don't worry, we've got another way for you to show your stuff. But for now, the main section really begins. The press is going to be jumping out of their seats with what we've got. The R-rated heroine gestured to the screen, where a dozen names and events flashed by faster than anyone could see. Now then, whatever will our next event be? What could possibly top such an amazing photo climax and such a dominating performance from our first-year Phenom? She teased, smirking widely. Parker bit his lower lip, while Yaoyorozu looked nonplussed. She didn't seem fazed. Midoriya's face was beet red though. We're on television, seriously, Takoyami sternly reminded her. Kaminari was grinning dumbly, as was Shiro, who laughed. Jiru rolled her eyes. Shoto saw the screen pass by as he sipped on some water. Get on with it already. The screen then slowed down, panning over Kingdom on a hill. Then Cavalry Battle, before settling on New Event, Shoto said aloud. And he wasn't alone, as his fellow peers who weren't downtrodden over the results of what had happened began to discuss amongst themselves. Except for Bakugou, who looked ready to have an aneurysm. New Event, Kamakiri muttered. What gives? There's no title. Could it be a ruse? Asui mused with a finger to her chin. Sensei. Ida raised his hand, gaining Midnight's and subsequently the teacher's attention. I must. Silence. Midnight cracked the whip, making the class secretary yelp. Now, I'm sure you in the audience are wondering. She smirked, licking her lips. Whatever could this mean? What is New Event? Well, it is a first for UA. As well, for this event will be. She held her hand out, blue eyes wide with hype. The first to be held here at the sports festival. You all should be honored to take part. Wait, this event is a first. Made this year, Shiro said aloud. That's so cool, Kirishima added. Shoto narrowed his eyes. What new event? Could they be throwing off people who had observed past sports festivals? If so, well, not like the old man's homework would have done any good, if he even bothered looking at it before he burned it in front of his face. Man, that was such a good feeling. But first, Midnight pointed at the student body. I must ask for the students who finished outside the top 32 to return to their designated seating areas in the stadium. You all performed well out there, and your time to shine will come after the top 32 engage in the next event. Shoto saw many of his grade, mostly the general education and support course students, take their leave, the general ed classes giving the top 32 dirty looks as they left. It'll be okay, Aoyama, you'll get 'em next year. Ashido patted the back of her blonde foreign friend, who walked off, hands on his stomach and in dire need of the bathroom. Koda-kun, the dejected-looking Dino boy, perked up at the pinkette. Can you help Aoyama here to the bathroom? I don't think he can get there on his own. The mute gentle giant nodded, and with purpose helped the half-French out of the stadium. And he's ready to blow too. Koda looked mortified, and began to trot, practically picking up Aoyama and running towards the tunnels. I shouldn't have lasered myself over the minefield. Oh lala, he groaned as Koda assisted him. Shoto focused back on his fellow students, eyes on Parker. Midoriya had gotten that quirk of his under control, but that wasn't all that had happened. It was Parker's dominance. He didn't need his gear. He was strong on his own. He clenched his fist and bit his lip hard enough to draw blood. He had intended to succeed with flying covers and show that old man that he didn't need his fire. Yet Shoto didn't even finish in the top 5. How could he be like All Might, his idol, if he wasn't the creme de la creme? Damn it all. He could feel the heat come off of Bakugou to the side, whose eyes were white with rage as he glared over at Parker and Midoriya, who were now talking with Uraraka and Asui too. He shouldn't have called out Midoriya. He was a fool for focusing on him when the real obstacle in his path to the top was that damn joking clown. Shoto took a deep breath and calmed himself. Don't be like Bakugou, he mentally repeated to himself. This was only the first event, he would get back on top in the next one. Even with All Might having his eyes on Midoriya, after that performance, the symbol of peace would have to be blind to not notice Parker's potential. Alright then, since we have calmed down, the first stage of the second event is. Midnight licked her lips, everyone on the edge of their seats. Shoto said aloud. An intermission with ice cream. She yelled with the biggest grin, and the entire stadium gasped and groaned. What the hell, lady? Get on with it. Bakugou roared at a higher octave than usual. Nuo, she's into blue balls. Zero wailed in despair. We need a break here, we just ran a marathon like our lives depended on it. Hagakure jumped up and down. Seriously, I thought I was gonna die back there. But Shizaki-san cleared a huge path for me, as did Ada-kun. Oh, I helped in assisting you. The vine-haired girl spoke out, hands interclasped. I am pleased to be of service, miss, for doing good deeds is what is expected of a hero, and I am fortunate that you were able to succeed. Her voice was melodic and soft while Shoto focused back on Midnight as he saw the invisible girl, and Shizaki talk amongst themselves. Some Class B students joining in. Hagakure was bouncy as usual, while Shizaki seemed grounded. Now then, several robots began to roll out of the tunnels, carrying several large crates of sorts. We will take a 15-minute break. In that time be sure to use our concessions and the restroom. Oh, and one more thing, top 32. Midnight had the entire group of students' attention, Shoto perking up. Keep the ice cream sticks and don't destroy them, for they are pivotal for the next event. The ice cream sticks. What for? This new event was setting up to be an odd one. He could hear commercials playing on the Jumbotron on top, with highlights of the race taking place. Most of them Parkers, with shades of Tsunotori, Yaoyorozu, the support girl, and bits and pieces of himself and Bakugou, mostly Parker, with the headline most dominant performance since All Might. Inhale, exhale. Don't break the stick. Shoto did his best to keep a calm face, keeping the boiling frustration within. Katsuki cursed under his breath as he gnashed at his ice cream, munching and chewing hard as his fists shook in rage. He'd lost. He lost the race not only to Deku, but to some no-name foreigner horn girl, Four Eyes, Rich Bitch, and fucking Parker. If it hadn't been for Icy Hot getting in his way, he would have blasted Parker sky high, or at least to the bottom of that goddamn ravine and out of the race. His teeth grinded as he ate fast, ignoring his brain freeze as he sulked on his own, no other student coming near him as he fumed. Heads would roll. Bakugou Katsuki would make sure of that. The next event better pit him against Deku though, just so he can blast that lying hypocrite's head off. First Deku, no explanation needed. Then Icy Hot for being the annoying fucker that he is. He would have gotten second if not for him, and that still made Katsuki livid at the thought. Then Rich Bitch. That skateboard of hers was what stunned him. Then that goddamn white goo of hers made slow down. And finally Parker, to finish off the walls in his way and cement his place at the top. Thinking back to that speech by Parker, they would be his sacrifices for that goal. He calmed, smirking as his red eyes simmered in a controlled malice. He looked down, noticing something odd about his ice cream stick. The hell is this? Huh? Free ice cream? Peter mused as the robots came in by him, Izuku, Ochako, Tenya, Momo, Mina, and Ijiru. The lids opened up, revealing ice cream bars galore. Oh, I know these kinds, they have these at Walmart. There was cookies and cream and strawberry shortcake. There's 32 in all, so one for each contestant. The assistant robot chimed as everyone grabbed a bar and tore off the wrapper. I could use the food. All that creation probably took a good deal out of me. Momo mused as she began to munch on the bar. The oranges and Gatorade helped, but ice cream goes a long way for me too in regaining my lipids. Eat girl. You were going wild on those cuties earlier. Peter grinned ear to ear, and Momo seemed to bounce in joy at the praise. You're lucky. You get to eat whatever you want and not get fat. The black-eyed Pinkette pouted as she munched on hers. Not fair. Wish my acid used lipids too. I wonder why the next event involves ice cream sticks. Ochako muttered as she began to eat at a fast pace. Well, it says it is new, so I'm sure we will know sooner than later. Ijiru answered before turning towards Peter. Gotta say Ace, you killed it today. Well, I did my best. Peter shrugged, laughing lightly. Izuku bit his lip. Yeah, no kidding. He looked down at the ground. I did so well too. Your best is being modest. Did you hear what Present Mike said? Parker-kun had the best performance in the obstacle race since All Might. Mina cheered, her black and gold eyes shining on Peter. That's some crazy good company. Peter blushed a bit. All he did was his best and enjoyed himself a lot more than he had in a while. A long while, Izuku's shoulders seemed to slump some more as he ate at his ice cream bar. "Cheer up, Deku," Ochako chirped. "You were so fast out of the gate too, bouncing on the walls like that." She took one last bite of her ice cream bar, finishing it in a hurry. "You were like a ninja and og." She hung onto her head, face contorting in discomfort. "Brain free as pacing oneself when indulging in ice cream is important," Momo stated, eating hers with her pinky outstretched. Mina stifled a giggle. The group seemed to laugh before Izuku pointed at Ochako's ice cream stick. "Hey Uraraka, that ice cream stick of yours, it has a blue tip," he pointed out, and the cute brunette perked up as everyone seemed to notice. "Hey, why's mine red?" said a voice, and the group turned, seeing Kamakiri Tagaru holding his up. His ice cream tip was red. "You know the drill, my precious kittens," Midnight cooed, swaying her arm. "Finish your treats and let us see those cute sticks of yours. This is getting really out of hand here. There's children watching," yelled Takoyami's voice from afar. The black-haired minx didn't look amused. "Silence, Puritan." Peter didn't care much, even if Midnight was facing away, and her back was towards him and just finished the bar. "You looked at Momo-san enough today as it is," he thought to himself as he took a bite from his ice cream bar at the top. He swallowed his bit after chewing. His stick was red. "I'm red." "Same here," Izuku said aloud. "I'm blue," Ijiro shouted. "Me too," Mina joined in. "And blue as well," Tenya muttered, staring down at his stick as he looked at Momo, as did Peter. Her stick was red. "All right, it seems everyone has finished their treats. A heartfelt thank you to those who had brain freeze to get the results faster," Midnight declared. "Now, to all who have red sticks, gather to my right. For blue, to my left. For the stage has been set." She grinned darkly as all the students looked at their sticks and then at each other. "For the War of the Flags is about to begin." "War of the Flags," Izuku muttered to himself. Along with his peers in the stadium, gossip began to emerge on what such a title meant. "Oh, must be like Capture the Flag. I played that game back in junior high." Mina waved her hand, jumping on her feet. "Hey, I remember playing that game, but only on some online games myself," Siro stated as he looked around his group of peers. "Likewise," Takoyami muttered, looking down at his stick. "And it seems that those ice creams we ate determined our positioning." "Most of you are correct, yes," Midnight exclaimed as she pointed up to the board. "But this is no ordinary Capture the Flag. It is a war between you all. The Red Kingdom versus the Blue Kingdom." Some of the students were hyped at the statement, but Peter could see how some weren't as eager. "Isn't it just easier to say teams?" Kirishima asked to himself. "Still, she's so active in her movements." The brawler blushed, looking uneasy. "Oh no, let her keep going." Denki elbowed the redhead as he grinned up at the stage. "Now then, we will now explain the rules, but first, our cameras have located all of the contestants who will be on their respective teams." The board split into two, with the bright words red and blue on the right and left sides respectively. 16 squares appeared under each one, and the pictures were quickly filled in. Peter glanced at his stick before checking out his peers. It was a perfect split of 50-50. Then he looked up at the board and felt a smile spread over his face. For the red team, Peter Parker, Pony Tsunotori, Yaoyorozu Momo, Midoriya Izuku, Honuki Juzo, Takoyami Fumikage, Ajiro Mashirao, Awase Yause, Asui Tsuyu, Shoji Mizo, Sato Rikido, Jiru Kyoka, Shinso Hitoshi, Shishida Jiroda, Senkaibara, and Kamakiri Tagaru. "Looks like I'm with you guys." He looked at Momo and Izuku, then towards the nearby Takoyami, before gazing afar at the Class B crowd. Pony was staring right back at him. "And I'm with everyone else." Ochako pointed at the screen, specifically at the blue side, and Peter began to bite his lower lip. Ida Tenya, Bakugou Katsuki, Todoroki Shoto, Shiozaki Ibara, Shiro Hanta, Takage Setsuna, Kirishima Ijiru, Tetsu, Uraraka Ochako, Ashido Mina, Hatsume, Kurwaro Shihai, Kendo Itsuka, Monoma Nido, Kaminari Denki, and Hagakure Toru. "Holy crap, look at our team," Mina exclaimed with wide eyes. "I'm with him," yelled Kirishima, and Peter heard a similar phrase from afar as he and the redhead turned towards the mass of Class B students, seeing Tetsu look right back with widened eyes. "So this is the makeup of our team," Tenya mused, cupping his chin. Peter saw Izuku's head turn, and saw the reason why. Bakugou was staring them down, having the biggest smirk on his face as his red eyes bore into them both. Todoroki was close by, eyes narrowed at them. Or was it at Bakugou? They were close by, and from their vantage point Todoroki was behind the blonde bomber. "Now then," Midnight's voice cut through the gossip. I must ask for all students, specifically in your assigned factions, to gather and talk amongst each other. After that, proceed to the west and east tunnels, please to leave the stadium floor. Huh? Why's that? Denki asked before Midnight cracked her whip. Silence and obey my commands, she barked, and the blonde yelped out a yes ma'am, before going over to his team as they began to gather. Todoroki and Bakugou were walking with their hands in their pockets, the former expressionless, the latter with the devil's grin. Well, I suppose this is goodbye for now, Tenya stated as he looked over at Peter and Izukumidoriya. Parker, I am honored to have you both as my peers, but... He paused, looking at them both with a determined expression. I must live up to the expectations of my family and make my older brother proud. As the youngest of the Ida sons, it is my duty to do so. So I will aim to win, even if I must go through you both. Bring it on, Ida. Peter grinned, giving a fist. May the best man win. Tenya blinked. What is this fist you're offering? Man, you really are lacking in knowing about the bro code. Kirishima rolled his eyes as he walked over, bumping Peter's fist. I like you tons, Ace, but I ain't holding back. Good luck to you both, Peter said before he turned his head, seeing Ochako stand before Izuku. Deku, I consider you to be a good friend, a great one even. The brunette girl paused, taking a deep breath as she stood before the nervous-looking green-haired boy. She opened her eyes, now possessing a face similar to Ida's. She wasn't going to pull her punches. But I have to win this for my family. I have to go beyond and ensure that they don't have to work another hard day in their lives. So I'm going for it with all I've got. She gulped, biting her lip. So do the same, Deku. You are right. Izuku coughed, regaining his composure. I understand what you're going through and all. He noticed his fellow red teammates start to walk past him towards the tunnel. But I won't give up either. We have dreams we need to fulfill after all. The girl gave him a determined smile, nodding as she walked off, Kirishima, Tenya, and Mina close behind. And then there was 4. Takoyami uttered darkly. Enough dawdling. Let's go to the other side and wait for Midnight Sensei's instructions. Momo patted Peter's shoulder, and the American nodded. Alrighty then, let's go. He began to walk across the stadium into the tunnel, Izuku, Momo, and Takoyami at his back as he joined his new teammates. Many familiar faces made him feel at ease as he got to the tunnel's entrance. Yet he felt many eyes on him as Pony walked up to him with a smile on her visage. Hey Peter. Peter returned her enthusiasm with a nod. Pony. He saw other students from Class B arrive. And hello to you guys too. There was Kamakiri in all his reptile glory, Shishida growling with his trademark bestial fury. And finally Honuki Juzo with his lipless face and wide-slitted eyes. Lots of heteromorphs here. Alright, the R-rated hero's voice cut through the arena before they had a chance to say hi. Before you all have a chance to confer with your fellow teammates, it's time that we change the field. Midnight snapped her fingers. Peter shivered, and over the roar of the crowd the stadium began to shake. What the hell is that? Shishida yelled. Is it an earthquake? Sato was looking around, panicking. No, it's not. It's too controlled. Jiru had her earphone jacks in a wall as she listened in. Shoji, you hear it too. The tall multi-armed boy shifted his arms into ears. Yeah, it's only on here too. Which means, hey guys look, yelled Senkaibara, pointing into the field as everyone turned, gasping. Way ahead of them, the grass field began to split in 2, and then 4 before it began to sink deeper into the earth. It continued to rumble and shake. The platform Midnight was on slinking back towards the stadium wall, and no longer being in the center. Then, from before the group a massive column of spires began to rise up in conjunction with giant boulders. The boulders and rocks were auburn and red, and far ahead, near the blue team's tunnel, were blue and steel-gray buildings and warehouses. This is incredible. They even changed up the stadium. Sato yelled. No kidding here, Kamakiri added, in awe of the change of scenery. Now then, a holographic projection appeared in front of the group as they stood by the tunnel's entrance, and a pair of robots rolled over while carrying a crate, one that was similar to the one that contained the ice cream from before. Midnight stood next to the projection. I am addressing the Red and Blue Kingdoms now, and to the audience, I will now relay to you all the rules of this new event, the War of the Flags. As you may have surmised, the War of the Flags is essentially a far more complex version of Capture the Flag. A map displaying the stadium appeared, with 2 halves on each side. One blue with the letter B in it, the other red with the letter R. 2 teams must collect points via one of 2 methods in order to attain victory. 16 circles appeared within each half of the circle. The first method is to obtain the silver flags. The robots in front of the group opened the crate. Within were 5 silver armbands with red highlights, and above them, a golden armband with a red highlight. Each silver flag is worth 20 points. A gauge appeared above the stadium circle, with the numbers going from 0 to 100 appearing, with increments of 20 rising. You must capture the opposing team's silver flags and bring them back to the King's Ring. Within each of the halves, a golden light popped up, with the various dots in the halves going back and forth. Do so, and your team gets 20 points. The first team to 100 points. Some blue dots had blinking white lights after clashing in the red half, returning to the blue side and into the golden ring. Wins the war, so we have to wear an armband then, Juzo mused, and prevent the enemies from getting it while protecting our own. Sounds simple enough. The lipless boy grinned, then again, with no lips he looked like he was always grinning. There is a second method, keep listening. Takoyami mused with crossed arms. The second method involves the gold flag. Several red dots encroached into blue territory, assaulting the golden ring, and one dot was glowing gold as it retreated back to the red half of the field. Players can choose to attack the King's Ring and take the King's flag to return to their own King's Ring. Do so, and the gauge, which had shrunk down, went from 0 to 100 the moment the gold dot hit the red gold circle. And your team gets an automatic victory. Wait, so what's stopping players from just ganging up on the golden ring? They could just rush us, Yause exclaimed. Not entirely, Momo mused, hand on her chin. This is a war, meaning that we must employ battle tactics, whether they be for offense or defense. Of course, no war lasts forever, and there will be a 15-minute time limit for the contestants to muster as many points as possible. If the time limit expires and no team has reached 100, the team with the highest score wins. Midnight explained some more, waving her whip baton. Of course, in case we have a tie. She licked her lips, biting her lips in anticipation. Then it is up to the kings to stand proud and fight for their kingdom's honor in a sudden death match. Can't you just say one-on-one and leave out the dramatics? Juzo asked with a quirked eyebrow. Of course, I mean more a match in tournament format. Midnight began to strut around, the 2 golden dots on each side coming forth as they met in the center of the split ring, duking it out. It would follow tournament rules. The match will go on until a combatant is unable to continue or suffers a ring out, falls unconscious, or is disqualified. There, that explains the basic rules of this game. But wait, there's more. Come on, let's get on with it already. See blue flag, get flag, and protect our own. We get it, Shishida complained, growling. Yeah, let us go at that ice punk for freezing my shoes. Kamakiri hissed, his fingers elongating and sharpening into blades. And that exploding asshole too who got me in the face back at the entry gate. I need to pay them back tenfold. Now little darlings, Midnight cooed, finger to her lips, winking. We're not even to the foreplay yet and you're all so eager. Patience please. Brahag. Takoyami roared in frustration. Now, as you can see, there are 6 total flags you must protect. Depending on placement in your races will determine who bears the silver flags and the king's flags. Now then, behold our rankings. Midnight pointed upwards, as the 2 divided teams became one with the same ranking as before, but each member of the top 32 had a red or blue outline. Peter perked up, seeing that he was at the top. The next closest blue team member was. The king of the red team will be Class 1A's Peter Parker, while the king of the blue team is Class 1A's Ida Tenya. Both Peter and Tenya's icons became golden with either a red or a blue background. He gets to be King Ha, Kamakiri sneered, and Peter turned, seeing the lizard boy glower at him. He got first in the race, Tagaru-san. Pony stepped in. He deserves it. The taller bladed lizard didn't seem too pleased with his peer speaking up for Peter as he took a step forward, only for Izuku, Momo, Jiru, and Takoyami to stand at Peter's flanks. Shishida, Awase, and Sen backed up Tagaru. Everyone calm down. Juzo stepped up between the 2 groups. I know we are in different classes, and Vlad-sensei wants us to be rivals with Class 1A. The blonde rolled his eyes. Lord knows how far Monoma has taken that mindset. But we can't afford to be at each other's throats. This is a team event. You're siding with our foes, Honuki, Kamakiri hissed, before his slittered eyes settled on Momo. Or is it that you recommendeds have some sort of boys club I don't know about? Quit it you guys, we're here to go on to the next event, not fight amongst ourselves. Asui stated as she walked up beside Juzo, the dark greenette glancing between her peers. She didn't seem at all perturbed by the lizard boy's glare. Besides, at the end of the day, we all want to be heroes, right? That's correct, and even with all this, I have a feeling that our chemistry is probably better, Shoji said as he got the attention of everyone in the room. Why is that? Sen asked, and one of Shoji's arms pointed across the stadium. where the group heard an explosive blast and cursing galore. They have a bakugou. Well, Kaken is really strong though. Very strong. Izuku mused, biting his lower lip. Now then, Midnight's voice cut off the conversation. I will go on to the assessment of the Silver Knights, bearers of these flags. We determined those by ranking of prime numbers, so for those who aren't math savvy, here are your Silver Knights on each team. She waved her whip, and the icons representing the contestants began to glow. Peter immediately thought of the prime numbers in his head. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, and 29. That means, Peter looked at his classmates, and then at the holographic screen. Red Team Silver Knights, Pony Tsunadeori, Yaoyorozu Momo, Midoriya Izuku, Asui Tsuyu, and Sato Rikido. I'm a Silver Knight. Izuku yelped. Well, me too, Sato added, eyes wide as he looked at the screen, skin not as pale white as Izuku's. How come Class 1A gets more silver bearers? Shishida grumbled. It's because of our placement, Momo explained, looking back at the disgruntled and bestial-looking young man. Pony got 2nd, myself 3rd, Midoriya 5th, Asui 17th, and Sato 19th. Hey, look at the blue Silver Knights, Asui said, and the group turned, seeing several of the blue team members' names glow with silver hues. Blue Team Silver Knights, Bakugou Katsuki, Todoroki Shoto, Shiro Hanta, Kirishima Ijiro, and Kaminari Denki. Hang on a second. Ajiro raised his hand. Bakugou got 4th, that's divisible by more than 1. Midnight, even hundreds of meters away, seemed to have heard him as more muttering picked up amongst the crowd. Bakugou is a unique exception, as the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 5th spots are all occupied by either Kings or Silver Knights, as Parker has the number 1 spot and the golden flag, along with Jiru Kyoka and Kamakiri Tagaru being on the red team courtesy of the ice cream sticks of fate. We opted that Bakugou be a fill-in for the number 1 slot needed to round out the Silver Knights. The R-rated hero explained as she went over the details. The holographic screen changed, with 2 halves shown, one in red, the other in blue. Peter and Tenya were the Kings, and their respective Silver Knights below them. So we gotta aim for the silvers, get the armbands or risk going straight for the king. Momo went over to the crate, taking her armband and wrapping it around her arm, while protecting ours, which means it's better if the Silver Knights hang back in their respective zones. Jiru added in, leave the flag taking to us. I noticed something, spoke up a voice for the first time, and Shinso Hitoshi, the kid from General Ed, walked forward, hands in his pockets. Is it me, or are the Silver Knights and Kings mainly the most destructive and mobile quirk users? He drawled in a bored tone. Everyone perked up, and even Peter's head got to work. Yeah, it was. Bakugou, Todoroki, himself, Izuku and Sato were very destructive, and Momo could be too depending on her creations. While Tsuyu, Pony, Shiro, himself, Izuku, and even Bakugou were highly mobile. Say, Izuku snapped his fingers, and Peter took a sharp intake of breath, feeling a chill run down his spine as he looked over at the green-haired boy, biting his tongue. You're right. Indeed, our team makeups are so unique and diverse. Oh, the variety. So much to choose from. Midnight swooned, hugging herself and pressing her arms against her breasts. Man, what a sight. Peter could hear Kaminari and Shiro cheering far across the stadium, but the immediate sound of Takoyami banging his head against the wall with an even angrier dark shadow was more prominent. TCH, Jiru scoffed. Pervs. Now then, for the major rules. Midnight waved her arm. One last time. Anything goes in the arena, so long as you do not use lethal force or disobey a referee's commands. Joining me for this event and monitoring the war will be 2 of Class 1A's faculty. She waved her whip, and to either side of her rose platforms containing their 2 teachers. Cementa stood to the right, while Ectoplasm was on her left. Utilizing lethal force or disobedience of a command will result in immediate disqualification. And, one more thing. She smirked, licking her lips. In the wars of fantasy and myth, they say the kings fight on the front lines in order to inspire the troops. Well, this is no war of magic and wonder. This is a war for keeps. The kings must stay behind their front lines and place their faith in their soldiers. Peter felt a pit form in his gut. As Midnight had explained the event in detail, he felt confident that he could go around swinging and jumping while getting the armbands from the enemy team, or save any armbands for his own squad. For you see, the king of each team must remain within the king's ring. If a king moves out of the ring via his own free will, and not by an enemy, the entire team is disqualified. Peter felt everyone's eyes on him as he bit his lip. Shit, he uttered, shaking his head. Well, there goes that option. Jiru rolled her eyes. We'll just have to do it ourselves. Sato's fist met his open palm. Don't be so hasty, Shoji corrected his muscular peer. You're a silver knight. You have to remain here and hide from the enemy team. That's right, if Peter can't move beyond his ring, neither can Ida. Pony spoke out. That works for us too. You all saw how fast he was. Doesn't do anything about Todoroki and Bakugou though. They may be silver knights, but they're incredibly powerful, not to mention the fact that they may be out for blood. Asui pointed out. She turned towards the group of Izuku, Pony, Peter and Momo. Before Izuku could break out in a cold sweat, Pony stepped up. No matter, bring them on. The blonde girl said, her blue eyes alight with a fire. I'll kick their butts again for sure. That's the spirit, Pony. Shishida roared proudly. Takoyami winced at the sudden outburst. However, Midnight's voice cut in again, and she smirked before the screen. If a king's armband is taken by the enemy team, then the enemy foes hath awoken a sleeping giant. For a king in the War of the Flags is no slovenly idiot king, but a king of merit and power. The king will be able to reclaim their armband and, in addition, be able to fight with their troops in the battlefield to retrieve the enemy flags. Of course, to cover that problem, if a silver knight loses their armband but has it be recovered by an ally, that ally becomes the new silver knight and must protect their armband. But don't be fooled, it's not just the knights that you have to worry about. Each of you will be graded according to your performance. Each act of heroism, cunning, and strategy will gain you favor in the eyes of the masses. Everyone has a chance to advance, win or lose. After all, heroes come from every corner of the world. But be warned, any act that could be considered villainous will only diminish your role. That means no backstabbing or excessive violence against your teammates. The black-haired woman sighed, wiping her brow. Now that was a mouthful. Quite a mouthful. Midnight cooed, giggling seductively and biting her lip. La 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 la. Takoyami had his ears covered and Dark Shadow was raving as his eye twitched. Oh, grow up and grow a pair already you wuss. Kamakiri barked, glaring at him. Now, most hero situations call for sudden and random team-ups. Since the selection of field was decided at random, Midnight crossed her arms. You will be allowed to enter your field of play and assess the battlefield. Points to defend, ambush, vital choke points and routes, or even places to hide. You have 10 minutes to form a plan of attack against the enemy team. The enemy has peers from your classes, as your allies have people you have never met or talked to in the hallways even. She waved her baton as Peter looked back at his teammates, no, his comrades for his event as they looked to him. Momo, Izuku, Asui, and Sato had finished putting on their armbands. Peter walked over to the crate containing his golden armband. He took it, wrapping it around his arm and tightening the Velcro. But now is the chance to forge camaraderie. The foes of yesterday become the allies of today. Your 10 minutes, the robots containing the crates rolled away, and Cementos and Ectoplasm stepped down into the divided field. Start now. Prepare. Above her, a timer began to count down from 10. All right then everyone, Peter said, as he walked forth, his silver knights trailing behind him. Momo and Izuku to his right, Pony with Sato on his left, Tsuyu in their wake. Let's do this. The rest of his team, the ones who had the best chance to go into the opposing team's side and capture any flags, strode on forth. The War of the Flags was about to begin. For the first time in a while, Shadow wondered if the universe had it out for him, because when he had proposed a change to the original strategy, he figured that Nezu would pull some strings and make it a more team-focused event than just a bunch of trainees slapping each other with their powers. Leave it to the producers and the board of directors of this whole headache to turn it into a reality TV show. Next to him, Present Mike was going over the events again for the radio listeners as well as spew hot air while the investors no doubt got their mandatory airtime shilling out whatever product chain supported the major heroes nowadays. He would get some flack later, but for now, the problem in front of him was far more interesting. He could forgive the average viewer for thinking that the win would probably go to the blue team. Out of the two teams, they had the most raw firepower and straightforward fighters. Todoroki and Bakugou in particular were two of the most talented and highly destructive combatants in the entire school. Todoroki's ice quirk needed a few members of the red team on constant standby if they wanted to even move with the recommended student capable of simply freezing the entire enemy team's side with barely a touch of his hand, or coating the battlefield in ice. Anyone that wasn't caught was left vulnerable to Bakugou's blasts. For all the hot air that the boy was spouting, he was no pushover in terms of tactical flexibility. The boy had shown remarkable skill in close quarters combat, and his range of destructive capability spoke for itself. then you wouldn't be mistaken for looking at the two brawlers next. Kirishima and Tetsu, two boys with quirks so similar that many would be forgiven for thinking they were related in some way. Shouta didn't know the extent of their durability, but the two of them were the easy choices for a win as far as brawling was concerned. And that wasn't even getting into the range of tactical options up their sleeves. Kaminari was a walking bomb, only needing to get close to an enemy group before taking out at least a few of the red team, though his position as a knight limited him in that aspect. One max discharge and he'd be incapacitated. But in terms of stealth, the blue team had the overwhelming advantage. Hirwaro and Hagakura's quirks were practically made for situations like this. Plenty of dark corners and alleyways for them to use in surprising their opponents. However, pretty much everything that he said, with the exception of the stealth category, could go to the red team as well. Midoriya finally got his head on straight and found a way to use his quirk that wasn't just shattering his limbs for single strikes. The mummified hero searched through the stands, but couldn't find one particularly irresponsible symbol of peace. Either way, Aizawa didn't know what Midoriya could do with his new powers, but given how the race turned out, he was at least as mobile and durable as his supposed childhood friend. The more he thought about it, every advantage that either team had over the other was simply negated. Bakugou and Todoroki were powerful and widely destructive, but plenty of students on the red team had shown the capability to break out of the ice or at least hold off Bakugou long enough to get a numbers advantage. If anyone wanted to talk about mobility, Shouta would simply point out that the two most mobile of the teams, Parker and Ida, were confined in their king rings. Tsunotori and Siro were the exceptions, but Takoyami was no slouch in his ability to utilize his quirk for rapid movement as well. And as for stealth, both Shoji and Jiru had their ways to detect invisible targets, and that wasn't even getting started on Parker's seemingly precognitive reaction times. He and Sato could easily keep up with Kirishima and Tetsu in a brawl as well. Hell, they would outright win with Parker's ability alone. Even the support was countered, at least marginally. That Hatsune girl was getting quite the praise from Power Loader in his off time. The girl had a knack for creating a variety of support tools even with her seemingly simple quirk. She would at the very least have something to support the backlines just like Yaoyorozu would bolster hers. To top it all off, anyone he hadn't thought about could simply turn the tables with a single good placement or a surprise use of their quirks. The General Ed boy. He would be a player in this, even if most would write him off and focus on the bigger threats like the two big guns of his class or the resident loudmouth of Class 1B. Monoma. That boy would thrive here with so many quirks to copy. It would come down to how well they could plan within the time they got, and if they could keep certain personalities in check. Alright ladies and gentlemen, we're about to get this party started. The biggest names for the first year class are about to go head to head in the biggest slobberknocker this side of Japan. Is slobberknocker even a word? Shouta grumbled. But of course, Hisashi ignored him. But the viewers have to know, my man Aizawa. Who do you think is going to take this? Where does the ninja man stand? Don't know, could go either way. Shouta said with a shrug. Oh come on, you gotta have something for the wonderful viewers at home. Mike complained, come on, what do you got? Aizawa glanced at the two sides of the arena, the rocky landscape and the sprawling city. Too many variables, too many limitations. Even so, I'll just say that if you're thinking this is going to be easy for one team, you've got another thing coming. Any hero worth their salt can tell that many of the quirks used by the contestants here can cancel each other out. How ominous. But there you have it folks, we've got an even split from the Eraser hero himself. Personally, I'm more of a red guy, but don't forget to post your guesses on our page and we'll get right back to you. Present Mike kept going on about the news site that was hosting this entire thing, so he ignored him and focused back on the two teams. There was another factor that he didn't mention. Class 1 had previously used their powers in a live fire situation, and as such among other factors, the relationship with Class 1B was strenuous at best. There were exceptions, but that just proved the rule. The team's biggest obstacles would be one another, he was sure of it. It was the perfect opportunity for them to get over it though. Wonder if Vlad had a hand in that one. And don't forget to subscribe. Shout aside, of course they had a subscription page. What other useless thing would they have next? T-shirts. So, how do you guys want to play this? Peter asked his fellow armband-wearing peers. They made their way to the king ring within their allotted space. Thankfully, it was marked with some pretty shiny gold paint. The space itself was limited, about 15 square yards, around the size and circumference of a house. Then again they were on the roof of one of the buildings that Mr. Cementos had made. Beside him was a giant bath-sized bowl of sorts with lasers inside. They must be for holding the captured flags. Thankfully, he was on top of a building, one of many that dotted the arena along with boulders and cliff faces down below on ground level. What he wouldn't give to trade spaces with Momo. She would lock down this place with so many traps that he probably couldn't think of all the ways. Bomb every door and bunker down there or something like that. Sato was checking his remaining cubes of sugar, counting them out and grimacing at the number he ended up with. Asui simply leaped between the makeshift light poles, her frog eyes glancing around every once in a while. Momo was the same, the looking around portion at least, not the leaping part. Finally, Midoriya was muttering up a storm as per normal, only breaking out of it when Peter asked his question. I think we should form a defense around the building and below us, Midoriya muttered. Parker's band is the most valuable, so protecting that is our best bet. Won't work, Ribbit, Asui said from her pole. I've got money on Todoroki and Bakugou rushing this place the second that the buzzer sounds. We can build things up as best we can, but you saw what Todoroki did to that 0-pointer in the race. Chances are he's going to make his first battle test feat look like nothing in comparison. He'd just make a big glacier and wreck the building. Midoriya blanched, and the fellow knights nodded their heads in understanding. Except for Peter. I actually don't know what he did, Peter admitted. The 5 around him blinked. Oh right, you were way ahead, Sato explained as he turned towards his shorter classmate. Basically, he turned the 0-pointer into a snow cone faster you could blink, then made it fall down on top of Kirishima and a Class B guy. Peter blinked once, then twice. Okay, Midoriya, I liked your plan at first, but now I don't, no offense. And none taken, Midoriya stuttered. But what do we do now? Pony asked, her peers from Class B behind her. If we're not defending Peter here, are we just running around like chickens with our heads cut off? Not the analogy that I would use, Momo muttered under her breath before she spoke up. Regardless, I think it would be best if we spread out our flags as much as possible. Wouldn't that just leave us as easy pickings for the other team when they come through? Sato points out. If they come through, Momo stressed, I doubt that our teammates will simply let them pass when the judges will be evaluating their progress. The event is more than simply taking the bands after all. Peter nodded, crossing his arms. Then are we cool with everyone splitting up? Not splitting up, Midoriya jumped in, looking between his teammates. Teams. Everyone glanced at the green-haired boy, who broke out in a nervous sweat as he glanced down at the floor. Just hear me out, Yaoyorozu, do you have a... He was cut off as she handed him a permanent marker and a piece of paper. Thanks, now, this is what I'm thinking. Right now, with the luck of the placements, we have a good balance of mobility and power, he said, drawing on the paper. After a few seconds, he got a makeshift drawing of the 2 sides of the arena, as well as the marked king circles. With our quirks, I say we set up in 4 groups. Parker-san and Yaoyorozu-san stay within the king's circle, making as much as she can with her quirk. Izuku, we've been over this, Midoriya. Todoroki is just going to freeze everything, Asui said. Not if she's prepared, Izuku countered. You 2 fought Todoroki before. All you have to do is avoid the initial ice salvo and you can counterattack. Then Yaoyorozu can retreat into the building to stall for time if need be. I can also make communicators, Momo offers, her skin already bubbling, revealing a set of walkie-talkies. That way if I'm ambushed I can call for help. She began to distribute them, even Class B's group taking them. As another group we can protect Pony, Kamakiri stated, looking back at Sen, Shishida, and Oase. She's our ace right now, and we have experience working together as classmates. He looked over to Juzo. You gonna join in too, Honuki? I'm better off going for the flags. My quirk lets me swim in the earth after all. He pointed at himself. And I can hinder any and all who get in my way. So you're on a fence then, Peter stated, grabbing a walkie-talkie and handing it to the ash blonde. It's better that we all communicate. The lipless boy had a ghost of a grin as he pocketed the device. Sounds like a plan. So we all can call for help, Asui said, grabbing one of the walkie-talkies with her tongue. That's good for the 2 reps, but what about the rest of us? Sato asked. I was getting to that, Midoriya said, drawing 2 other circles, one on each side of the king's circle. We hide out in these areas around here, close enough to assist if needed, but far enough away that we can serve as distractions to anyone looking to take Parker-san's band. Right now, I think I should be with Asui while Pony-san and Sato-san team up. That way, if any of us are found or need assistance, there's someone there that can make a quick escape. Peter blinked. It was really good. It was like a big game of tag, but with human lifelines instead of a safe zone. That's right, Asui and Pony are both super mobile, and you 2 are bruisers, Juzo stated, clapping his hands. Gotta say, you're smarter than you look. That doesn't sound bad at all, let's do it. Sato grinned, offering a thumbs up. Upon hearing such praise, Izuku jerked back, a nervous line of sweat running down his face. I just thought of it while I was a kid. I threw a lot of ideas into my hero journals and city combat came up a lot, so I remembered an idea I had. Midoriya stammered, "You guys don't have to agree to it," he shouted, flailing his arms. "If you don't like it, just say so. I understand." Pony hummed a bit before she glanced at Sato, who stared right back. "How heavy are you?" she asked, matter of fact and sternly. "Around 90 kilograms, Sato admitted. Both Peter and Pony stared blankly at him. "About 200 pounds, Momo clarified. The Americans shot her a thankful look, but Pony looked hesitant. "I can work with it, so long as he doesn't move around too much," Pony commented. "We'll still protect ya. Besides, we can't leave you alone with this Lumux," Kamakiri declared. Sato looked offended. "What did I do?" "Hang on, while I understand your feelings in wanting to help defend a knight," Momo interjected, "it may be best if you take part in the attack." "Huh? I get to be on offense?" Kamakiri asked with a quirked eyebrow. "Obviously," Shinso drawled, walking up to them. "Honuki there may be a recommended student, but I doubt he can do all the heavy lifting. He'll need backup." Midoriya looked over at the purple-haired boy. "Wow, impressive. So we have various teams protecting our flags." Izuku looked at Pony and Sato, then at Asui. "A team to help with defense of the King's Ring." He turned towards Yaoyorozu, Shoji and Jiro. "And our attack squad." A group of Kamakiri, Shishida, Oase, Sen, Ajiro, and Takoyami stood proud, with Juzo in front. "Going by our capabilities, I think Takoyami and Honuki have the best chances as flag returners," Ajiro stated as he looked over his team. "They are the fastest ones outside of our knights." The ash blonde nodded. "Good eye." He turned towards the raven-haired boy. "Let's do our best out there." Takoyami nodded. "Indeed, let us revel in the darkness." Juzo blinked, looking back at Kamakiri and the others. "TCH, he's like Kiwaro, ain't he?" Sen muttered under his breath. "Speaking of, Shihai might be able to counter him too," Shishida whispered, causing the shadow user to perk up. "What is this Kiwaro Shihai's quirk and how can he counter my ability?" Momo finished making the walkie-talkies and passed them out as the attack squad got to work, talking strategy. Peter walked over to his fellow knights. "Guess this is the part where we say good luck." Peter offered. "Luck? Who says we need it?" Sato said confidently, flexing with a grin. "Yeah, we all know. Let's move." Midoriya, Asui began leaping away. "Yeah, we better," Izuku started, only for his voice to trail off as he noticed Asui's tongue wrap around his waist. The boy looked at his classmates in surprise before being yanked away by a tongue that probably could lift a car. Izuku yelping as Asui began to hop with Izuku off the building and into the rocks and warehouses below. Peter added that to another thing around here that didn't obey the laws of physics to see Pony get on all fours, gesturing at Sato to get on. Sato worriedly looked back at him, and Peter shrugged. The sugar giant tentatively took a seat on her back. To her credit, she didn't even buckle, only staring back at Peter after Sato got himself situated. Kamakiri and Shishida glared holes into Sato's head, making the muscular boy gulp. "Call the second you're in trouble," Pony stated, patting her pocket where her communicator was. Peter held up his walkie-talkie. "You'll be the first to know," he replied in his native tongue. The girl smiled tentatively before taking a few careful steps. "So, do I just sit back?" Sato asked as they prepared to leave. "Kick me and I drop you," she growled, not happy to be in such a position as they leapt off the building to a nearby warehouse, using her horns to levitate downward. One horn on her hand, the other on her knee to float downward. Peter's shoulders slumped as his friend carried the big man away. He saw Momo pour something over the drawing, covering it up only to look at the building to her left. "Call when you need me," Peter offered again, waiting only for her to smile back before she trotted down the stairwell, the attack squad behind her. "Parker," Shinso's voice spoke out, and Peter turned, seeing that the only remaining resident on the rooftop was the purple-haired general ed student. The fact that he made it here was incredible. "I'll handle getting a flag or two myself. Green over there didn't seem to delegate a role to me, so." He shrugged. Peter blushed. "Oh, well, sorry. I don't know your abilities and you weren't in the hero course, and not that that's a bad thing and all." "Relax," Shinso said. "I have my own methods for grabbing a flag. All I need is to sneak in the other side unnoticed, and I have a feeling that I'll have a good chance." His eyes turned and Peter followed his gaze, seeing small explosions flare up in the distance, presumably where the other team had gathered. Bakugou must be arguing with his teammates. "They have a lot of power, but seems like fate rewarded me with a team possessing some brains. You sure that you can handle getting a flag solo? If you want to be on defense or attack you can," Peter assured him, but Shinso shook his head. "It's alright, I need to stand out in my own way." Not that many guys of the team seem to notice me, and that in of itself is an advantage. Shinso walked towards the stairwell leading downward. Do me a favor and don't get taken out, he smirked, looking back. I've got some plans for this event, so do your best, Peter Parker. And the baggy-eyed kid left, Peter quirking an eye. He knew Shinso that wanted to be in the hero course, so that may be what he was going for. Good luck then, Peter called out. He didn't get an answer back, so he walked towards the edge of the building, sitting down on it as he felt the wind pass by, hearing the ambience of the crowd and the overhead sounds of the Jumbotron's commercials. He felt a tick on the back of his neck, and he looked up to see a hovering robot with a camera in the center focus in on him. The crowd roared their approval, and Peter checked out the Jumbotron. There, for everyone to see, was him, perched at the edge of a building. He threw out a peace sign and smiled. The crowd promptly went wild. It made him laugh, every single voice looking out and cheering just for him, sitting and, for lack of a better word, posing on the edge of a building. It was all a little silly, but before Peter could dwell on it, a blast echoed throughout the stadium. He squinted his eyes, and he swore he could see a small pillar of smoke erupt from the enemy side. Looked like the blue team was getting along as well as it could with bakugou on their team. He prayed that such discord would continue. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 8. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.